Got to prepare, you know? You get it. All right, we're good. And we are live. Welcome to the NFL DFS Pick'em Strategy Show, which always helps me to be written on the screen to my right. I'm Josh Engelman. It is Sunday, December 8th, week 14 in the NFL. It really does feel like the NFL lasts forever and goes quickly. I don't really know how to reconcile that in my head, but I feel like it goes on forever. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, there's still 4 more weeks after this week just in the regular season, which I know a lot of you are very happy about. I'd be very happy if you guys hit the like button. If you subscribe to, I couldn't even say that, subscribe to the channel. This is in, man. It's blocking off the ability to speak. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engelman. That is where you could find only dogs. If you want to bet on underdogs every single day based on the Odd Shopper Portfolio EV tool, only dogs is what you're looking for. Didn't go our way the first week, will go our way throughout the rest of the year because we know what the data looks like. You should also be following Greg Ehrenberg on Twitter. He'll be up next, building out some lineups for you guys. He's doing a bankroll challenge. It is awesome. He is up 400 plus bucks or somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 over the first 35 days of the NBA season, just using Odd Shopper and the Portfolio EV tool. And that's what we're going to do right now. We are going to use Odd Shopper and the Portfolio EV tool to build up some cards, not at sportsbooks, but at pick'em sites, whether that's PrizePicks, Underdog, Better, Sleeper. It's all right here. And the model handles it all for us. Now, I do see some spots where we're probably going to overlap into some NBA plays. We might even be overlapping into some soccer plays. The top two PrizePicks plays that exist right now in the Portfolio EV tool are both EPL plays, both from Tottenham, I might add. And cheering against Tottenham, always a good time. So as I'm looking at this right now, we see Trompa said, how many milligrams in, 3 or 6? I'm not a child. It's a 6, obviously. I'm surprised it's not 2 6s right now. I'm like a Texas cattle ranch with the amount of 6s I get in here. That's a deep pull for all you Yellowstone fans. What else we got going on in chat? Chat, what's up, man? How's your weekend going? Phil Lower says, I need this 1 mil, bro. You guys let me win. I'm pretty sure we all need it, dude. We all need it. We all need it. I would take a mil today. That wouldn't be the worst thing that happens to me. I don't think. Chat. All right, let's say you hit the milli today. What's the first thing you buy? What's the first thing you guys want to buy if you won the milli today? I don't think I have a good answer. Mine's gonna be dumb. Probably a car, which I don't even need. Peace. Yeah, it's gonna cost a lot more than $1 million to buy some peace. Oh my God, Lowell's hit it. 2 chicks at the same time, man. Hey, Peter, man. That's great. A dispensary. That's interesting. Depends on the state, I guess. House, pay off all debt, pay off house, pay off mom's house. A lot of people paying off their houses. I will say, though, people probably won't agree with this. More than likely, paying off your house is the mistake. But this isn't going to be a finance show. We're going to build some pick'em cards. But depending on what your interest rate is, paying off your house is probably not the one. Could be, depending on what the rest of life is looking like and how big that number is. Dog rescue. John Musto. I like that. I like that. Kareem nails it. Drugs will definitely be involved. We'll end on that note. Let's build a PrizePicks card, folks. So we're going to use the Portfolio EV tool. We are going to use the Pick'em Optimizer. It really doesn't get any easier than using the Pick'em Optimizer. I'm going to start just by checking out what we have from the NFL side. And we do have enough positive EV plays that a NFL-only card will be okay. if we take this Tony Pollard play, the Foster Moreau play, the Achane play, the Kareem Hunt play, the Metcalf play, and the Tommy Tremble play. Those are the top 6 NFL PrizePicks options. This is how simple it is to use OddsShopper. You put those plays in. Let me pin Jordan's window over here so I can see what he's doing. You take just the 6 best NFL plays, if that's what you wanted to do. You could do that, and it builds a 4% EV card. I know we're trying to think about the NFL here, but I also want to think about money more than I think about anything else. And to make more money in this scenario, we're going to remove the Tommy Tremble play. That takes out a negative 0.3 EV play. And I'm going to just replace it with the best possible play that exists, which is going to be Kuliszewski of Tottenham under 1.5 total shots. Because that right now is a 6.7% EV play. That takes this card from 4% EV to 11. We're not going to stop there, though. I'm going to also remove DK Metcalf, and then we're going to add Alperen Şengün, another 6% EV play. This gives us 18% EV on PrizePicks right now. I'm going to hop over to PrizePicks, and it's as simple as entering your bet size. Because you can press the button at the bottom of the screen that says bet now. It takes you right to PrizePicks. It loads up your card with every single one of the plays we just selected. And I've placed it right now. $1,000 incoming if we go 6-0. And the best part is, I've got a link here for you guys. I'm going to drop it into chat. Anybody that wants to tail the card that we just built, this is the difference between talking about Pick'em and talking about DFS. We could all win together here. There's no competing information. Lines might move, so you got to move quickly. But we're not competing against each other. We could all win together. 25x our money on PrizePicks if this card goes 6-0. Whereas in DFS, we're all fighting for that same milli at the top. So it always feels a little weird. Not here. So if you guys play on PrizePicks, we just took 4 NFL plays and the 2 best non-NFL plays and locked in one of the better PrizePicks cards you'll see anybody be able to build. That kind of value doesn't exist regularly. Now, my recommendation for using the Pick'em entry builder to use Portfolio EV tool, would I want to use those 6 plays? Yeah, of course. But we have, I'm just going to count it off here as fast as I can. 5, 10, 15, 20. There's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 plays that are showing positive EV. Now, you can get away with a negative EV play in a 6-pick card, but I wouldn't just be trying to build one. Instead of building that one, so I did $40 to win 1,000. Instead of doing that one card, the real recommendation here is to try and spread out your entries. I would try to build 40. Well, in this case, you can't do $1 cards. Let's say it's got to be 5. I would want to do 8 $5 cards instead of one $40 card. If you're really trying to do this long term, spread it out a bit. Mix and match these plays. Create a situation where you're able to build a big portfolio of everything coming out of this Portfolio EV tool. I wonder why it's called that. Build yourself a portfolio that is more diversified. Then you don't have the crazy up and down swings. You're not just praying for that 125x that you hit. You can flatten that out a little bit and just see a steady rise, because we know what the data looks like in OddsShopper. We have all of the historical results. It's all here for you if you want to know how good this tool is working. It's certainly printing on the sports betting side, and we'll touch on that in a second. But now we've locked in the PrizePicks card. Did the Spidey bombs hit yesterday? Said can't play PrizePicks in every state. No, you can't. Not every state is going to have pick'em sites. You're going to be good to get into one of sports betting or pick'em sites, depending on where you live. But yeah, not every state is going to have PrizePicks, which is going to push us over to Underdog now. Now, the first thing that I like to do at Underdog, before I even go to the Portfolio EV tool, I like to go to Underdog to see if they've got any boosts. And for me personally, I don't think I've had a boost on Underdog in like 2 weeks. For the beginning of the NBA season, they were hitting me with 20% boost, 25, all these like wild card ones where you could negate an entire play and create your own free square. I haven't had one in ages. But as I look at the portfolio EV tool right now, we would have needed it because there are no positive plays right now. We can maybe squeeze out 1% EV, but I don't even think that's the case. Yeah. So on a flex play with the 5 best plays available on Underdog, it's a 1%. It's basically a coin flip card. We would have needed a boost. Angry Junk in German said, not Stokastics, not just for DFS anymore. Underdog, breakfast beer, Stokastic. Look, we hit it all now, man. This entire industry is different. And you can, I talked about diversification there. You can diversify what you're doing now too, depending on where you live. Like I'm in a unique spot where I have them all. I can play DFS, I can play the pick'em sites, and I've got 7 sports books that I can use. Instead of just having to funnel everything I did for 5+ years, well, I mean, more than that, 2014. So what, 9 years of essentially DFS only and offshore sports books. Now, DFS, pick'em, sports books, you could really spread your action out, still get a ton down, but not have the same risks of just having to win a GPP. No sports betting in Missouri for another 12 months. Underdog is considered DFS. Yeah, I mean, every state's got their own technicalities, which is pretty annoying, but eventually, I'm expecting everything to be everywhere. How long that takes is going to be a completely different conversation. Let's see if we can get anything built. I'm going to go to Better first because I can share a Better link. We do have one ridiculous Better play to start, which is going to be Mike Conley's under in points. Foster Moreau has a decent option here. There's not a ton of additional NFL options. Foster Moreau, unfortunately, is the only positive NFL play. I am going to add in Isaac Orendo to add another NFL option, at which point we could finish it off with 2 more NBA plays. That's still only a 5% EV play. I'm gonna load this in as fast as I possibly can. Unfortunately, this is a cell phone only endeavor, which is pretty annoying. Every one of these sites, I understand that the large majority of people now are way more likely to be doing things on their phone in comparison to on a web app. I understand that. It's not me. I hate it. I would greatly prefer everything be on a normal website. I hate using my phone, which is really weird because it's not like it's new technology to me. Like I grew up from the jump of the phones on the technology side. I hate it. There's something about it. I don't enjoy the experience as much. But I don't think anybody cares. Isaac Orendo, longest rush. I could not find that to save my life there. I'm getting Siakam in under rebounds and assists. And DeJounte Murray under 3.5 turnovers. So I just built a 5-pick Better card. Now, Better is going to do 10x if you go 5-0. You're going to get 2.5x if you go 4-1. So I just placed this Better card. And I believe if I copy this entry to my phone, it ends up in my clipboard on my laptop. Is that going to be right? Oh, I'll tell you what. Macs are kind of dope in that regard. I copied that on my phone. I pasted that in my browser. That I like. But Better can't build a web app? Come on, Better. Build me a web app. Final one we've got here is Sleeper. Now, Sleeper, I can't even paste a link for you guys to join me on this one. So you guys can tail along with PrizePicks. You could tail along with Better by just clicking that link. Sleeper doesn't give us the same ability, but look at the value on this DeJounte Murray play that's on Sleeper right now. That's enough to just build you basically anything, no matter what is left. We could build a 15% EV card just from taking the 5 best plays in the portfolio EV tool. And all of that EV is carried by one play of DeJounte Murray. So this is another situation where I would really like to diversify. I would build a lot around that Murray play, but I would swap out those other four options and try to flatten that out a bit. It would become a situation where you desperately needed Murray, but it's a great diversification spot. Before we go any further, you guys got to know one thing. You guys can get this tool. Now, on a day-to-day basis, you can get OddsShopper and the Portfolio EV tool for free, for zero cost to you, just by signing up through one of our partners. And there's a link in the description for you for that. There'll be one in chat. You click that link, you sign up through one of the partners, you get a bonus bets or deposit bonus on those sites, and you get a month of OddsShopper for free. Now, maybe you don't want to, maybe you've already signed up for all of the pick'em sites or sports books that are available to you, so that deal doesn't work. I can help you out there. Cyber Week is what you're looking for. That is our current promo right now, and it's going to end soon. So soon, in fact, that it ends today. If you don't take advantage of this today, you won't be able to do it. You'll have to use that offer that I just mentioned before. But if you use the promo code CYBERWEEK, you will get the Portfolio EV tool at OddsShopper for 70% off for your first month. That covers you on the sports betting side. That covers you on the pick'em side. Greg and I, Eitan, Nathan, Eric, Lofty, Ben, we're putting out a lot of content based on this OddsShopper tool right now. If I missed anybody, my apologies. I'm doing this off the top of my head. We're putting out a ton of content on how to use OddsShopper, best practices for the Portfolio EV tool. This is the future. This is the best thing going in the industry. And if I got fired tomorrow, I would be saying the exact same thing. I would never stop using OddsShopper and the Portfolio EV tool. It's the best thing that exists if you're trying to make money sports betting. And I'm going to show you the easiest way to see it. And Jordan's already on it right now, showing the results in the Portfolio EV tool. So let's just do this. Maybe you're an NBA fan. You can just simply select NBA as the league. And I'm just going to say, let's say we wanted a good recommendation. So we're going to take anything that had a 5 OddsShopper rating or higher. We give every bet that we recommend a score from 0 to however high it could possibly be for that particular bet. Let's just say 5. Let's cut the bottom out. Let's say you only want to focus on very good recommendations in the NBA. Well, if I click the preview results button after filtering for OddsShopper greater than 5, just this season alone, we have recommended 25,000 props since the end of October. They have those recommendations have returned 9.4. Well, Jordan's got it at 11. Do you have a different filter set up? Yeah, move that back down to 0. We should have the same. Yeah, now we've got the same data here now. 9.4% ROI with a 5 OddsShopper rating or higher for anything in the NBA. You could even see the categories: threes, assists, points, PRA, rebounds, all of those categories, at least 7% or higher. We're running a little cold on double-doubles so far, but I wouldn't read anything into that one. Only 300 and change bets. Could do the same thing for NHL, for NFL, for MLB. All of these sports are here, and we have all of the history of this tool to prove it. We have last season's results. We have this year's results. If you're just, let's say you're a dollar better. That's what your bankroll is giving you. You have $1 that you could put down basically on any recommended wager. Even if you put down $1 and hit every one of the bets that we've recommended in OddsShopper, you're up over $2,000 in the NBA this season. And you could build out your own portfolio based on these filters and get notifications to your phone immediately when the line is ready. And then you're one button click away from placing that wager. This is the best tool that exists, guys, and you can get in for 70% off right now using the promo code CYBERWEEK, and it all goes away. So you guys know what's going on for the rest of the day. Greg Ehrenberg is coming up next. He's going to build some lineups with you guys for the next half hour until we get to 10 o'clock. At that point, you guys know what you get at 10 a.m., the best coverage in the business from a DFS standpoint. You get Lofty, you get Ben. They're going to go for an hour and a half. They're going to go all the way up until 10:30, breaking down every single game on today's slate. And then finally, you're going to get live before lock, Eric Lindquist, Matt Gajewski. They'll have all their injury news at 11:30. They will take you all the way until 1 p.m. and kickoff for this week. We're talking about 4 straight hours, 3.5 after I'm done, of NFL coverage. And I know you guys love every bit of it, because depending on what you're looking for, you're getting a little bit of something different throughout all of it. Greg using our tools to build lineups. I know people love using that single lineup sim. It's the best. And watching Greg build that kind of stuff out, go through ownership and go through exposures, I know people want to see that. You want the deep dive into every single game. That is what you're absolutely going to get at Alofi and Ben. And then the ramp up, the final 90 minutes with Eric and Gajewski. Where else would you want to be other than on the Stokastic YouTube channel every single NFL Sunday? Do we have anything else that we can build on the pick'em side before we dip on out of here? Anything on... I guess we could check out DraftKings Pick 6, see what exists for right now. We'll go NFL. We'll look at the 1 o'clock games at least. Best that we have here on the NFL side is a 56% play to Brock Bowers. Kind of wish we had something a little bit better than this. I was hoping for slightly more value here. Unfortunately, I don't really see it. Even a 2-pick card for Bowers and A.J. Brown doesn't stand out to me as something that I want to go crazy to get to. Just going to take a quick look to see. Yeah, there's nothing really in the 4 o'clock slate. Nothing really for prime time. Is there anything on the NBA side? Okay, on the NBA side, you could probably get to a decent card here by looking at this DeJounte Murray play, which we've already seen showing up on some of the other pick'em sites. I would probably be looking at a 4-pick card here on pick 6 of Murray, of Rudy Gobert, of Miles Turner, and of Pascal Siakam. So glad you guys got rid of Dean. Hey, Spidey Bombs. I think you clicked on the wrong stream. You clicked on the right stream if you wanted good information. And I like Dean. Not that that's what should be happening on this show, but you're not talking about the right place, brother. You're a little confused here. But this 4-pick card, I think it kind of looks pretty good. You're getting 4 plays, 58% or higher on pick 6. That's going to put you in a pretty good spot. The only downside is the fact that it's a 4-pick card. I would probably dip my toe into those 57%ers and try to go for 5. 4 is going to be the most disadvantageous size that you could build on PrizePicks or on pick 6, if I remember correctly. But we have these calculators and we have these builders for all of the pick'em sites and for the sports books. You could build your parlays like this too at a sports book, or you could use these tools to build out your pick'em stuff. Sotex, somebody's a bit too happy at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Sotex, don't be using Central Time. We all know Central Time is the most phony time that exists. So guys, we built a PrizePicks card at 18% EV. Can't beat that. We got to build a better card as well at a pretty nice EV. And there is still a sleeper play hanging out there in DeJounte Murray that I think everybody would be happy to get to before that line moves or before they pull it away. But we have reached the end of the line. I've got no more pick'em stuff for you guys. We've exhausted our options to start the day, which is perfect because we have reached 9:30, which means you guys are now going to build some lineups with Greg Ehrenberg. You guys are going to finally be able to do what you wanted to do when you woke up this morning. I know you guys don't want me doing pick'em stuff. I like doing it because the tool is fantastic. But you guys want to get your hands dirty and dig in to NFL coverage. And now you can do that. Greg is going to build DraftKings lineups and FanDuel lineups over the next half hour. He'll take your questions. He'll test out different swaps for different players, take out a chalky guy here, put in a contrarian guy there, and we'll see what it looks like. So get ready, everybody. Greg Ehrenberg coming up next. Enjoy your NFL Sunday, everybody, and sign up for OddsShopper using the promo code CYBERWEEK. Peace.
Good morning, everybody. It is time to build some NFL DFS lineups. What we got coming up for you guys, which, I mean, listen, we're towards the tail end of the NFL season. You guys know the schedule at this point, but maybe there's some new people here. And if you are, subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video. For the next 30 minutes, I'm going to build some lineups for you guys on both DraftKings and FanDuel using the single lineup sims that we have here at Stokastic.com. If you want to sign up for any of the tools, links are down below in the YouTube description box. And also, we're going to look over all of the player projections, the ownership projections here on the first run. So after I'm on here for a little bit, then we're going to have the deep dive with Laffy and Ben Raza. We're going to walk you guys through every single game on the slate with any relevant injury news, all the matchups, anything along those lines. And then we've got Matt Kajeski and Eric Lindquist bring you guys home for the final stretch on Live Before Lock, where they'll go over any final projection updates, what their exposures are looking like, and answering any questions that you guys have. So let's start getting into it here. And Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, let's pull the projections up on screen. I'm seeing we've got some super chats that have come in. And if you guys want us to review your lineups, leave us a super chat with that lineup. And we'll plug it into the single lineup sims and evaluate it for you. And if you are a Stokastic sub and you're in the Discord channel, at me over the course of the show. I'm always looking out for any questions that we have from our subs in Discord. But where we are going to start here, let's look at the initial ownership projections and player projections. Well, not the initial ones. It's close to the final version, pending any late news that comes in. But let's look at the players that are projecting the best for the slate, Jordan. As per usual, we'll start at the quarterback position. And there is a big price gap at quarterback for this slate, where we have two quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts who are $8,000 and $7,800. Then there's a $1,400 price gap between Jalen Hurts and Baker Mayfield. So we're going to look here at the projections, where you'll see we've got both Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts projected for north of 20 fantasy points, but they're the only two. Then you got Sam Darnold a little bit over 19 fantasy points, Baker Mayfield also a little bit over 19 fantasy points. And then as far as ownership at the position goes, it's pretty spread out. If you wouldn't mind sorting by that, Jordan, you'll see there's only two quarterbacks pulling north of 10% ownership, and both of them barely over 10%. You got Will Levis as a value option. He's 11.5% owned. Sam Darnold, 10.06% projected ownership. So when I say barely over 10%, really barely over 10%. And then Baker Mayfield's 8.5% owned, with no other quarterbacks even 8% owned on the slate. So QB ownership, it is not going to be problematic for today. It is very, very spread out at the position. Where that is not going to be the case is at running back. Running back is absolutely loaded. I am fairly sure this is the most viable running back options that we've had on any slate for the entire season, because we've got great pay up options. We've got Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara, both projected for around 25 fantasy points. Both of them in great matchups, too. You got Barkley going up against the Panthers. You got Alvin Kamara going up against what's left of the New York Giants. And as shitty as the Giants have been this year, this is a team worst record in the NFL. Season ended right now. They'd have the first pick in the draft. And they're starting to get injured as well. Like Dexter Lawrence, probably the most important player on the Giants defense for run stopping, dislocated his elbow last week. He is out for the season. So an already easy matchup for Alvin Kamara gets even better. And oh, by the way, on top of it, Taysom Hill, he is out for the season after tearing his ACL last week. So that's one less player to vulture touchdowns from Alvin Kamara. So we got two great pay up options. Kamara, Barkley, both around a 25 fantasy point projection. Let me take some water. I got something stuck in my throat. So start by the ownership now, Jordan, because you guys will see here that on top of the really expensive running backs who look great, we got some cheap value options as well. Yeah, so where this starts here, and the chalk at the position right now, it's Alvin Kamara, nearly 50% projected ownership. And then you got Zach Charbonnet looking great as well. Charbonnet is $4,800. And the reason he's projecting so well is there's no Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, this is a very high leverage game between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. If the Seahawks win, they're pretty close to an assurance to win the NFC West. And we've seen that when Kenneth Walker has been out this year, Zach Charbonnet plays a really big role for the Seahawks. He gets almost all of the touches out of the backfield. If you go and look at his game log, we had two games earlier in the year where there was no Kenneth Walker. A game against the Patriots where we saw 14 carries and 5 targets for Zach Charbonnet, and then a game against the Dolphins where there was 18 carries and 4 targets for Zach Charbonnet. So we're probably looking at somewhere around 20 plus touches for him, and he's only $4,800 on DraftKings, so he looks really good. So those are your two chalkiest running back options, both of them over 40% owned, but it doesn't mean they're the only popular options on the slate, because we also have Isaac Guerendo at $5,400. He was looking like he was going to be chalk a few days ago. This was before we knew Kenneth Walker was going to be out. And you got Isaac Guerendo. He's $5,400 going up against the Bears. Jordan Mason on the injured reserve. Christian McCaffrey, he's hurt again. He's on the injured reserve. So earlier in the year, when McCaffrey was hurt, Jordan Mason got the bulk of the carries, played almost all the snaps in the way that we would normally see from Christian McCaffrey. So now with no McCaffrey and no Mason, you have to think Guerendo is going to play that role where he's going to be the workhorse back. I do think we're going to see a decent amount of touches from Deebo Samuel out of the backfield as well. But Guerendo, the number one guy there, also really good looking value option. And then you got Saquon Barkley. He's also nearly 20% owned. And then you got somebody like a Bucky Irving, who's just been on fire as of late. He is in a good matchup against the Raiders. And the only reason that he isn't more popular, and I do suspect he's going to end up coming in a little bit more owned than the 13% mark, but it is tough just because running back is such a loaded position. This is probably a slate where we just see a lot of the field build 3 running back lineups on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Is just Bucky Irving. It's the opportunity cost of playing any of these running backs is that you're missing out on one of the other ones, because all 5 of the most popular running backs on the slate, Kamara, Charbonnet, Guerendo, Barkley, Bucky Irving, I all think these guys are terrific options relative to the price tags and the matchups. So running back really, really loaded for this slate. A wide receiver now, and this has been the case for a lot of these slates as of late, but if you guys have the salary to spend up for anybody at any position, you're going to gear more towards the running backs than the wide receivers. Because if you look at our top projected wide receivers for the slate, it's Justin Jefferson at 19.3 fantasy points, Puka Nacua at 18.7. There's nobody else who's even projecting for 17.5 or more fantasy points. And the one that's next up there, it's Malik Neighbors. And from what we know about Neighbors, it seems like he's going to be somewhat limited today. So running back is such a better position to be spending up for than wide receiver. It's not to say that Justin Jefferson or Puka Nacua are bad options to have in a lineup, but in a flex spot, I'd rather be on Kamara or I'd rather be on Saquon Barkley. And then the ownership at the wide receiver position, also kind of spread out here. You got Jacoby Myers, a little bit over 20% owned. Juwan Jennings, he's 19% owned at $5,200. Then you got Drake London, 18.5% owned at $6,400. But a handful of running backs in the teens in terms of ownership here, but no crazy chalk into position. You got the mid-range is what's most popular, which makes sense when you consider that for good reason. More people are going to want to spend up at running back than at wide receiver. So now finally the tight ends, Jordan. So we get sort by tight ends, and the tight ends are looking really strong here. At least the 2 pay up options we have in Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. Because if you guys remember the projections we were looking at for the top end wide receivers, it's the same for the top end tight ends. Brock Bowers at 18.45 fantasy points. The only wide receivers that are projecting for more fantasy points than Brock Bowers, it's Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua. And the same goes for Trey McBride with an 18.1 fantasy point projection. So 2 really strong pay up options at the tight end position. And I do think there's reasons to go cheap. We could look at a Juwan Johnson, for instance, with Taysom Hill being out. And he is somebody who is not even pulling all that much ownership. Actually, we got 6% projected ownership for him here. But if you sort by the ownership now, Jordan, you guys will see Brock Bowers, 26% owned, Trey McBride, 18.5% owned, K. Dotton, 12%, TJ Hawkinson, 10%. I think he's a decent looking value option as well at $4,300. And then no other tight ends pulling double digit ownership. So all that aside, let's go ahead and start building some lineups with that information. And what we are going to begin with is the super chat that we have here from Christian Smith. And one other player as well, who I'm seeing some people bring up in the chat, is Braylon Allen with Breece Hall being out. Yeah, he's another viable, cheap running back for the slate at $5K. We've got him projected for 14 fantasy points and 12.5% projected ownership. So it's really, I wish we could play lineups with all running backs into other positions today, because it is really loaded with strong options. So we've got Christian Smith's lineup here where he wants us to build a Sam Darnold stack. He is going Darnold, Guerendo, Zach Charbonnet, Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, Drake London, TJ Hawkinson. So a double stack here with Jefferson and Hawkinson. Then he's got Juwan Jennings, the Titans defense. And then he says, good luck today. So yeah, good luck to yourself as well, Christian. And first glance, I think this is a pretty good looking lineup. I want to see how it ends up simming out for the slate. So yeah, run that through. And yeah, opportunity cost is so hard at the running back position because I like Guerendo a lot. I like Zach Charbonnet, but then I also look at the lineup. It's like, oh, but you don't have Braylon Allen, or you don't have Alvin Kamara, or don't have Saquon Barkley. But that's just kind of the decision points to make it running back. But this particular lineup looking really strong, Christian. 71.4% sim ROI. So nothing I think you have to change. I think that's a good looking Sam Darnold double stack. And then Price Productions has also left us a super chat, and this is with a different build. He is going with Aiden O'Connell at QB, so he's going with a little bit of a cheaper stack. And yeah, I like Aiden O'Connell stacks for this slate as well. And let's see what else we have in that lineup from Price Productions. It is Aiden O'Connell. He went with Charbonnet and Kamara at running back. And then he's got Juwan Jennings, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Isaac Guerrero, Saints defense. So yeah, at first glance, I think this is a really strong lineup that's going to sim out quite well here. And Aiden O'Connell double stack. You got Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers in it. So double stack there of the Las Vegas Raiders. And shout out as well to Ron War, who left a super chat that just simply says, I like spaghetti. All right. I don't know if you're 6 years old, but yeah, like you, I like turtles. I like spaghetti as well. Shout out Ron War there. Let's see how this is looking. Yeah, another strong one, 70.5% sim ROI. Couple good looking lineups there, and they were pretty different looking builds as well. One with Sam Darnold and one with Aiden O'Connell, so different price points there too. And we got a question here in Discord. This one is from Hypnotoad. Hypnotoad says that when he's using the single lineup sims, the best results are using a Sam Darnold Vikings stack. Is there one that I like better today? So yeah, so we're seeing that Hypnotoad has built out a handful of lineups. He is a Stokastic sub, and in our Discord channel, and he's saying that he's finding the best results in terms of sim ROI, building out Sam Darnold stacks. And there isn't one quarterback I love over all of the others. So just for reference, running my lineups through the sims, I have, 1, 2, 3. I have 5 quarterbacks that I have double-digit exposure to, and none of them in more than 15% of lineup. So I have double-digit exposure to Will Levis, Sam Darnold, Caleb Williams, Aiden O'Connell, and Geno Smith on DraftKings. So there isn't one quarterback that I look at for this particular slate, Hypnotoad, and go, that's the guy I need to be stacking around. If I was playing, let's say, a 3 max GPP or 5 max GPP, I would make them all different stacks. There wouldn't be one team in particular that I'd want to build around. But considering that we just got super chats were built in Aiden O'Connell lineup and built a Sam Darnold lineup, let's go ahead now, Jordan, and let's build a Will Levis lineup. He is the chalk on the slate, which, I mean, I know that Will Levis chalk is never going to feel all that great, but he's very cheap at 5K, and I do think that he's an interesting guy to build some lineups around. So let's go Will Levis, and we're going to stack him with Calvin Ridley. And I don't really love a second stack option with him. There are other guys that we could go to, but my preference for some of these Will Levis lineups, just a single stack with Calvin Ridley. I mean, also when you look at Will Levis, he is rushing upside, but he's also cheap enough to where you don't need him to go out and throw for, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns like some of the more expensive quarterbacks might have to. So let's go Will Levis to Calvin Ridley. And now we'll build a lineup around here. And I see we got a super chat as well from a Matt Corsetti with a core. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll finish this lineup, then we'll build the Baker lineup that he put in there. All right. So quarterback, we have that filled in. We got a wide receiver spot. Let's see. What do we want to do at running back? Since this is a pretty cheap stack, let's see how easily we could fit this in, Jordan. Go Alvin Kamara and Saquon Barkley. Let's see if we can make this work. We're able to build some lineups that look good with both of them on Wednesday when Lofty and I were doing the first look lineup building show. But let's see, now that everything's updated, how does it look if you try to build a lineup with both of these guys? And now throw a Zach Charbonnet in the flex. I just think those salary savings are going to be really important now that we have both those quarterbacks. And then Charbonnet, Guerrero, I like both of them. In this particular lineup, I'm going to lead towards Charbonnet for the $600 in salary savings. And then at defense, let's see, what's the cheapest we could viably go at defense? Let's just plug the Browns in at $2,400 against the Steelers. That'll give us the most salary savings possible. If we have some extra salary at the end, we could always upgrade it. All right, so we've got the running backs locked in. We've got one wide receiver. We got the tight end spot open. What does that give us for average salary left, Jordan? Okay, 5K left. So there aren't any super cheap punt wide receivers I like. So I think we're going to have to go a little bit cheaper at tight end. So let's go to Juwan Johnson. who I do like him at $3,400. He's pulling single-digit ownership. He got no Taysom Hill, and pretty much all of the pass catchers have been out for the Saints for a while now. But since the coaching change in New Orleans, we had seen Taysom Hill really, really be a big factor in the offense. We saw him get over 10 targets a couple of games ago. There's just a lot of usage to fill there, and I think Juwan Johnson could take on a lot of it. So let's go with Juwan Johnson at $3,400. And now at wide receiver, let's plug in Juwan Jennings at $5,200. And that gives us what? 65? All right. So I think if I'm not mistaken, Drake London's going to project best for us of all the remaining wide receivers. Okay. Well, if it's not him, you could say it's not him. Okay, cool. So there we go. Let's plug him in and let's sim it now. We'll see how it comes out. Yeah, Sotek saying that he's playing Westbrook Akine today. I mean, the guy seems to catch a touchdown pass every single week. I don't totally buy it, but if you needed a second stacking partner there in Tennessee, he would be the guy. 82.3% sim ROI. So yeah, lineup is looking pretty solid there. And this is even though we plugged in both Barkley and Kamara and went super expensive running back. We're still able to make it work there. So let's go ahead now and let's fill out the rest of the lineup from the super chat that we got from Matt Corsetti. So what Matt wanted to do is build a Baker Mayfield stack. So we started with Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, and Brock Bowers. So we've got a QB, we've got a running back, we've got a wide receiver, a tight end, and we've got the stack already built out. So let's see what we can do to fill the rest of this in. And let's see if there's any other questions from Discord. Nothing else at the moment. I do see we also have the super chat from Price Productions, so I'll check that out after we answered this one from Matt Corsetti, and they'll build out some FanDuel lineups after this as well. All right, so do we want to run back here? So for Tampa Bay, or he's already got the run back in there, and Brock Bowers. I wouldn't also mind plugging in a Jacoby Myers, but don't have to for this lineup. But I do think it's an interesting way to make a really heavy game stack. So let's do that for now, Jordan. Plug in Jacoby Myers, and then we're going to have two run backs, and you're kind of hoping for a shootout in this spot. But Jacoby Myers is also one of the best overall points per dollar projected players that we have on the slate at not just a wide receiver, but at any position. So Jacoby Myers, solid looking option there. And that gives us not that much salary left, actually. So let's go once again, cheap at defense. So plug in the Browns for now again, Jordan. We'll go to the Browns at 2,400. It's the cheapest viable defense that's showing up in my lineups in the Sims right now. And that'll help us a little bit here. So still not that much salary to play with. So let's plug in two of the cheap running backs we have on the slate, Jordan. So go Charbonnet and Garendo. And then we'll see what that leaves us with at the wide receiver spot. If there's somebody that fits in easily, we'll just plug that guy in. But if there's, either a little bit of extra salary remaining or somebody that we need a couple $100 salary savings for, then we could adjust a little bit. What does that give us at wide receiver? Okay, so let's go Elijah Moore, and then let's upgrade the defense to whatever projects the best. It might still end up being the Browns, though. Is it still the Jaguars against the Titans? All right, that's reasonably fun. We don't have any Titans players in this lineup, so let's run it with that. We'll see how this lineup ends up looking. Another solid one, 67.3% sim ROI. We aren't seeing lineups, at least so far on DraftKings, that are having like the 150 sim ROI or anything like that. But I kind of expect that to be the case for this slate, just because there are so many good-looking players at the running back position that just when the slate is being simulated, you're going to see some of these situations where no matter who you play at running back, there is going to be slates where it's just other running backs that end up going off with all the options that we have. So yeah, another solid-looking slate. And I think, once again, good reason that we're going to want to probably spread some of our stack and QB exposure out today. Price Production says that he left $500 in salary on the table in his last build. Where do we recommend that he uses it to improve his sim ROI? So Most reasonable way to do it, price productions, is going to be by upgrading your defense potentially. Although the Saints defense, I think, has, the second highest projection of any defense for us. So let me go back and look at the lineup. You had Jackson Smith and Jigba at wide receiver, and he is, what's the price point on JSN? $6,300. So you could upgrade JSN in that lineup you had built before. And instead of JSN at 63, let's see, who is projecting the best at $6,800? Devontae Adams at 6. I think, Drake London at 64. I'd say that's one way you could do it, is you could go from JSN to Drake London. We've got JSN projected for 15.06 fantasy points, Drake London at 16.85. So that'll improve the lineup a little bit from both a projection standpoint. Then because you got about 1.8 fantasy point higher projection on Drake London, that would make the lineup on average sim out a little bit better. So not anything that's like drastically different, but I think that'll give you marginal gains. And Jordan's running that through right there. And you'll see 92.9% sim ROI. That'll always be slightly moving on different sim runs, but in general, that lineup is going to end up looking better. Corey Williams left us a super chat here for a DraftKings lineup. And by the way, I would be remiss if I did not bring up that today is the final day of the Cyber Week sale for our portfolio EV tools. So if you guys want to check out our portfolio EV tools, this is going to be the best deal that you guys can get on it at the moment. Sign up 70% off with the promo code CyberWeek. These are the tools I use for my own personal bets. I also use it for the bankroll thread that I've been doing on Twitter. Sign up, link down below in the YouTube description box. And these tools, it's not all that expensive considering the power of the betting system that we have. These tools are going to pay for themselves in the long run, and 70% off. You're getting less than $30 for access to our Odd Shopper betting tools, Portfolio EV. Just make sure you click on that link below and check out the promo code CyberWeek to get your 70% off discount. Let's see, Corey Williams. And this is also a DraftKings question. And then I'm going to head on over to FanDuel and build out a FanDuel lineup. And sometimes people will say, hey, how come you don't talk about FanDuel more? I'm just answering the questions that people bring. And so far, it's been a lot of DraftKings related questions. Actually, all the lineups that we've gotten are DraftKings related. But we'll look at FanDuel after I build out this lineup for Corey. And he wants Aiden O'Connell at QB. And then he is going with Bucky Irving and DeAndre Swift at running back. Then he is going with Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got Jackson Smith and Jigba. Is he missing a wide receiver? Okay. All right. So we will we'll add something in for him. He's got the Bears defense. He's got Trey McBride as well. By the way, first, this is not going to be a lineup that sims out all that well, other than the fact that it's missed. Just what wide receiver projects the best? Just sort by projection. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then put him in. So we'll sim it here. And so double stack. I like the core of the lineup as far as the stack goes. I like Aiden O'Connell stacks. I like him with Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. But some of the other pieces in this lineup, like DeAndre Swift, I'm not super high on Swift for this slate. And you'll see it didn't sim out terribly. It is a 21% sim ROI. Let's see. DeAndre Swift is $5,700. Here's a really easy way we can improve this lineup. Here's what we're going to do, Jordan. Swap out DeAndre Swift. And let's make him Zach Charbonnet instead. And now take out Marvin Harrison. And what do we have for salary left there? Okay, so at 6,900, we could plug in. I don't really want to go to Neighbors projection is going to end up updating, I believe, as we get closer to lock, considering he's going to be limited today. So let's go to, defense, he had the Bears in. So let's go a little bit more expensive at defense. Actually, just plug in the Saints defense at 2,900. All right. And now at wide receiver, we have $6,400 left. And let's plug in Drake London. This is going to come out looking a little bit better. didn't really drastically change the lineup. It's still the same core. We just swapped out a couple of players that simulate better for us. And I think that's going to make the results quite a bit better. Yeah, way better. So there we go. Just a couple of changes. And that's overall the best lineup that we've had so far as sim ROI goes. So that right there is some easy ways you can make a couple of changes to tinker around with your lineup in the single lineup sims where you're not drastically overhauling the lineup. You're just making a couple of player changes and you'll see how much better the lineup ended up looking there. So yeah, Corey, I think that's looking pretty decent there. So let's give the people a FanDuel lineup now, Jordan, because I want to make sure that we don't overlook the FanDuel side of things. And over on FanDuel, a lot of the quarterbacks I get to pretty similar to the quarterbacks I get to on DraftKings. So let's build a lineup around quarterback that we haven't used yet, who's also one of the guys that get over 10% of on both sites. Let's go Geno Smith at $7,400. And there's a couple of different things you can do with Geno Smith. First off, I have no issues at all pairing Geno Smith with Zach Charbonnet. If you guys remember at the top of the show, we were looking at Charbonnet's workload earlier in the season when Kenneth Walker was out. And you should expect 4, 5, 6 targets at least from Zach Charbonnet in this list. So certainly you could stack Geno Smith with Zach Charbonnet. Another thing you could do, though, is you could also go Geno Smith without Zach Charbonnet, and you could play guys like JSN or DK Metcalf, and you get yourself a little bit of leverage if Zach Charbonnet is not the guy who ends up scoring touchdowns for the Seahawks today. But overall, in most of my lineups, I do like Zach Charbonnet more often than not as a stacking partner with Geno Smith. So let's go Zach Charbonnet. And then for wide receivers, we will go to, let's see, let's go DK Metcalf. He's cheaper than JSN today. They project really similarly, which goes to show how much JSN has improved and how he's more viable as a fantasy option. Not to say he wasn't earlier in the year, but week 2, week 2, week 3, we wouldn't have been projecting Jackson Smith and Jigba for more fantasy points than DK Metcalf. But still, I slightly prefer Metcalf at the cheaper price point. So there we've got our stack. And as far as a run back, I do like going to Trey McBride at tight end, so we can make this a game stack. Trey McBride, $7,200 on FanDuel. All right, so there we've got that part of the lineup built out. Let's also go to Isaac Orendo, $5,200. It's just way too cheap to have a price point for him. Same with Charbonnet. Charbonnet, Orendo, they're the two best overall value options you have on FanDuel. They're going to be popular. It's for good reason. And that gives us, a little bit over 6K left. So now at defense, Jordan, let's plug in. Let's see, what's cheap? Let's just go to the Jaguars at $3,500. Yeah, they showed up in 11% of my top lineups in the Sims for reference. So now at wide receiver, let's see, what else could we go to here? Jerry Jeudy. I do think there's a chance that Jerry Jeudy gets steamed relative to his ownership projection, just because we see that time and time again. Who's the guy who had the big game a week ago, especially a game in primetime that was very visible to a lot of people? Jerry Jeudy. So he projects really well for this slate. He's also projected to be popular. And yeah, there's a chance that his ownership ends up being even higher than the close to 20% he's projected for. But either way, Jerry Jeudy is somebody that I do like at $6,100. My ownership to him per my personal apps could come down a little bit if his ownership comes up closer to lock. What does it leave us for the final 2 spots, Jordan? All right. So infinity salary, basically. So with that in mind, let's go to, all right, so Kamara's 92. Is there a wide receiver at 86? Oh, this is going to work. This is going to work well, actually. We could go Puka Nacua and then Alvin Kamara. And that'll fill the exact salary, right? Okay. Ah, damn. All right. Misremembered the salary there. So let's see. Is there $100 that we could save at defense? We have the Jaguars in right now, and they are 3,500. Let's see. Is there you know, just go to the Falcons defense at 3,200 and run it like this. I'm sure there is a little bit more optimal ways that we could have updated this, but I mean, we've got The show about to end, and a couple more super chats. Apologies to Lofty and Ben. We're going to be going a couple minutes long here because we just had a couple of FanDuel lineups that came in. But yeah, 116.8% sim ROI. So that lineup is looking good. Let's plug in these other two super chat lineups for FanDuel, and then we'll hand it over to the deep dive guys. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But Rip and Spin. Sorry. No, that is Rip and Sippin. I read that wrong. He's got a Jameis Winston stack. So it's Jameis Winston, and then he's got Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, Drake London, Jordan Addison, Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, Isaac Guerrero, and then the Eagles defense. So he's gone with a little bit of correlation with Saquon and the Eagles defense. He has also got a double stack here with Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. Let's see how this one ends up simming out. And I also like Jameis Winston for this slate. He looks a little bit better on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings. A lot of that has to do with the price point of his pass catchers. You got $6,200 for David Njoku. You got $6,100 for Jerry Jeudy. So, yeah, lots of different options you could go to here. And then, yeah, there you go. Drake London. Let's see how this one looks. I do think that Najee Harris being in the lineup is going to drag the lineup down a little bit compared to if you had because you don't have Charbonnet in the lineup. So if you had Charbonnet, yeah, 19.5% sim ROI. We don't have to rebuild the lineup here, Jordan, just because we're short on time. But here's the easiest way that you could improve this lineup, rippin' sippin'. Take out Najee Harris, plug in Zach Charbonnet, and then upgrade one of your other players with the remaining salary, and that'll end up being a better looking lineup. Marvin Baez. He also has a FanDuel lineup. This is a Will Levis stack, and he is going with Levis, both the pay-up running backs. So he's got Barkley and Kamara. Then he's got Calvin Ridley, Juwan Jennings, DJ Moore. He went with Grant Calcaterra at tight end. And then he's got Zach Charbonnet and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So let's see how that ends up looking there. If I'm not mistaken, did he have... Oh, no, never mind. I thought he had Jerry Jeudy in line. I was thinking of the last one. I was thinking that he had a defense, one of his skill position players. But that's not the case. But yeah, FanDuel, it is not hard to make lineups with Barkley and Kamara together. The question really becomes, if you're doing that, do you want to leave out Guerrero at $5,200? Do you want to leave Charbonnet out at $5,300? That's really the big opportunity cost there. But I certainly don't hate Kamara and Barkley lineups together on FanDuel. Let's see how this lineup ends up looking. 61.2% sim ROI. Looking solid. I do think that Grant Calcaterra may be a little bit thin at tight end, but I get it. You're just kind of forced to do it with the salary, considering how much you spend up there at the running back position. But either way, I think this is a really fun slate. The most fun one we've had in a while with all the decision points to make at running back. So that is going to do it for myself. But stick around, guys. Ben and Lofty, they're going to take you through all the games. And then after that, we're going to have Eric Lindquist, Matt Kajeski, finishing up the show with Live Before Lock, going over all of the final updates to any of the data on the site and telling you guys about their exposures while answering your questions. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the slate today, and I'll see you back here on the channel tomorrow.
Terry also went there. You remember that guy in the Pacers? Taylor? Terry?
Tarius Talor.
I don't know who that is.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive Week 14. Man, we're in December, which is weird because there's like no weather today. No, usually you get, second week into the December, you start getting some weather, but that's not the case. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. Yeah, we just had a comment. First thing that popped up that I saw that said RB Chalk Week, fellas. Ben and I were just talking about that before the show. And I think this I'm going to take some stands again. It doesn't mean I'm just fading chalk, obviously, but it means that we're going to have a fun show ahead of us. And I think this one requires a whole lot more nuance than just like, play this guy at 100% or play this guy. So we talked about that. Prior to that, I was working on lineups this morning, getting some bets in, throwing some into the Discord, while you were simultaneously educating me on Middle Eastern history and the warring factions between all of. Now, I have like a pretty rudimentary knowledge of it. I understand, but you just gave me like a full out.
That's what I'm here for.
Like a college semester's worth of Middle Eastern affairs. And I appreciate you for that. I knew you were into it. I didn't know you were that much into the thick of it.
Yeah, I wrote my college thesis on that.
Did you really?
No, I didn't write a college thesis.
You know why
I did.
It wouldn't have surprised me if you did a lot of work on that because you would have been in college, right? Like post 9/11, like several years post that, still a lot going on. So it wouldn't have shocked me. You know enough about it to write a thesis, I think.
That's true. Maybe I should. After I build my lineups today, maybe I'll get working on it.
I always come to you for that stuff.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here for that. Hopefully you come here for a little of this too, because this is a good slate. Game theory-esque. You mentioned it. Big time ownership. Not as simple as like, is this guy a good play? We know they're good plays because there's running backs that are underpriced. But what do we do? Do we pay down at running back 3 times? Pay up everywhere else like everybody else? Or do we say, okay, maybe some of these mid-range running backs are the leverage points now? Because who in their right mind is looking at that given the slate?
Yeah, big time. And also, you're talking about the pay down, or do people just go like double pay up at running back with a 3 running back lineup and one of them is the pay down? Because I could see a lot of that too, right? Like Barkley, Kamara plus Charbonnet or something in that respect. There's a lot of moving parts. I'm very excited to talk about this. How you feeling, man? You ready to dive in?
I feel great. Yeah, it was a long day of college football last night and MMA, but I want to give a quick shout out to Steve McGee, who's in chat, helped. I'm not taking credit for this, but he got 4th in the CFB contest out of 14,000 yesterday. He was hanging out live before lock with me and Gajeski. Great stuff there. Really cool to see. Congratulations, man.
Awesome. Also, Wally Balls, the B-Ball Paul fan. This guy just, again, I'm not kidding. I think he's won or placed top 3 in like 8 tournaments over the past week. I'm not exaggerating.
Isn't it? Obviously, it's probably just in my head, but I played DFS for a long time. I swear to God, when you get on a streak,
yep,
you just like it just gets. It's so crazy how that happens. You can't miss.
Yeah, I would like that. Why
yeah, me too. I vaguely remember what that feels like, but I'm pretty sure there was a time. Now, I'm telling you, hot streaks, it really feels like that they occur when you're in a flow state.
Well, and we've seen it with subs all the time where they just,
oh my God, yeah.
Where it's like this guy's name shows up every single day. But I wake up to a tweet this morning that he took 15K, second place in a CFB contest. He shouted out you and Matt as always, and the college football sims. But let's get into it, man. I'm excited. Happy to have you guys with us. If you don't mind, take a single second. It's Sunday morning. No better time than a Sunday morning to atone for your sins. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It's free to do, always free to do. And it will bring you, hopefully, some good karma heading into this slate. I'm going to do so right now. Ben, Jordan, I'd request that you guys do the same.
I did.
And those of you in chat as well. What do you think? 800 today is a fair number? Set it.
What did you say?
800?
Oh, I thought you said 1,800.
No.
No, I'm feeling good. You dropped like I said, we were good. I was dropping some Syrian knowledge on you. I'm gonna go 9-13.5.
Really?
Yeah,
Up from last week.
up from last week. What do you say, chat? Can we get to 9-13.5?
All right.
Yeah,
Let's give it a whirl.
we're gonna say.
I like your optimism. I'm not used to it. It means I'm going to have a bad day.
Yeah,
All
most
right.
likely.
Yeah, let's get into it. Carolina, Philadelphia. This line, past 13. I had a feeling, I mentioned this to you on Tuesday. I thought the public would kind of come in late and move this even more. This is just, I'm not saying this is a public spot necessarily, but the Philadelphia Eagles are bookended by this game's bookended by a huge win against Baltimore and then a big game next week against the Steelers. Look, I'm not saying they come in and lose this game at home. I also don't think this is a spot where I'm looking to get a lot of Panthers players. Maybe you could twist my arm, get me to play Moore just because he's very cheap. Jalen Coker's doubtful. Jatavian Sanders is expected to play. I still don't think you get there. The tight ends are healthy, but it's just been a really good, smothering defense for this Philly team. And, Chuba's not exactly cheap. Who knows how much more Brooks gets worked in. Still has a rushing prop below 20 yards. But Moore is like the one guy I think you could convince me that if you need value and you're double paying up at running back or you're going with an expensive stack, you know what, Ben? Maybe even an expensive Eagles stack today, and he just kind of slots in naturally as that run back that you would have played anyway. You could convince me of that. But I don't know how I get to, unless you have interest in guys like Adam Thielen today, who made a phenomenal one-handed grab down the sideline to keep that game competitive last week. I get it, but I think I'd rather just go as cheap as possible to avoid getting burnt.
Yeah, incredible catch to literally instantly fumble the game away. Not that that was his fault, but tough breaks. Credit to Carolina, they're not an easy out right now. They're overmatched in these games. They're going to be overmatched today, but they're playing hard. There is no doubt about it. They are playing hard. I don't like this team from a DFS standpoint. I mean, you mentioned David Moore. Anytime you're going to tell me that a guy's got 19 targets in 2 games and he's flat 4, I get it. I get it as a conversation point. Not going to Bryce Young. I'm not going to the tight end situation. I'm not getting to Hubbard. Certainly not getting to the defense. So there's just not that much to say. And on a slate like this, David Moore really didn't fit what I was trying to do. So Carolina's almost a throwaway for me.
Feels like the only time he fits is if you're going expensive stack. And I mean, what's the real only true expensive stack? Philly? Because it's not like Josh Allen's pass catchers are even that expensive, right?
Yeah, it would be. I'm not even an expensive stack. I think there is an interesting game theory to actually like double paying, going like Barkley Achane.
Well, hold on. That's what I'm saying. Double stack or the 2 expensive, like Kamara, Barkley, Kamara, Achane, Barkley, Achane, any of those 3, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like there you might need to push because you're killing your running back spots where all the value is. You might need to pay down at wide receiver. It's a really tough ask for a guy like David Moore to outscore not just one. That's the theme of today, and I guess we should just get right to it. You don't have one Chase Brown type situations. You have like 4 of them.
Yep.
And it's hard to imagine that all of them don't get there. And that makes it really tough for some of these type of builds.
Johnny Joe Dillinger, I have to point this out because I need to know now what happened. He said, I need some good karma after the office Christmas party last night. Not sure how I walked back into that place. I mean,
in there, but not really. But
no,
yeah, we're going to need some details, my friend.
Yeah, please provide us with details. So then the YouTube chat, AI can tell us what because that's always the best part when you look in it's like beta mode where it gives us the details.
Synopsis.
Remember, it's talking about you being Jesus-like, Christ-like the one day.
Yeah, it's getting more accurate by the day.
Fine tuning the process. Yeah, we fill us in on that. And Jordan, if you see it, hit me and let me know. Philly. Okay, so Barkley's like minus 280 to score. I'm seeing two like you're juxtapositioning 2 different ways of looking at this. One, they're trying to chase the records and everything, which I think is bullshit anyway. I was talking to a buddy arguing with a buddy about this the other day, how like, as you continue to add games, the records are just stupid. They don't mean anything. That's right. I mean, it's true, right? I'm not saying OJ Simpson was the greatest human on earth. You can debate that, but like he did the 2K in 14 games. You can't compare that. And then Dickerson, right, in 16 with the you can't compare that by giving people additional games and just being like, no, he has the record. So while I'm not saying that they might not look to get him, over the 2K mark or whatever, I also think that the primary focus here is winning football games and keeping this guy who has been a revelation fresh and healthy heading into the postseason with a 2-loss team. So I love Barkley, and I think he's a great play today at 9K. But do I just assume that he's going to get 30 targets, 250 yards, and 3 touchdowns? You know what? Well, you raise your eyebrows at that, but a lot of people are looking at that game this way, right?
You said 30 targets. That's why I raised my eyebrow.
Sorry, 30 rushing attempts.
If he gets 30 targets, I'm leaving.
Yeah. 30, but a lot of people are looking at it like,
100%.
Listen, they're just going to run him until the wheels fall off as 2 touchdown favorites against the Panthers. Maybe they do, but I'm not locking that up as the guaranteed situation.
No, definitely not. And yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. One, clearly the Eagles have more important things going on than trying to chase arbitrary records. That's step one. Step two is that Saquon could have a really effective game, but just points per dollar, he's boxed out if all this value chalk, I should say, really gets there. Because never say never, but it's really hard to go for like 6x when you're 9K. If you're 5K, you can do that. It's actually possible. You need 300 yards and like 4 touchdowns if you're Saquon. Now, raw points, there's a lot that goes into it. Saquon's clearly in play. He's easy to get to because of all this value, and that's going to push up his ownership. We have him around 20% right now. I have nothing really to say about him. If you have the money and you want to go get Saquon, you mentioned, if I had to pick, and I'm sure you're the same, one single player to score a touchdown today, I think it's got to be him.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
That's not enough.
No. Josh Gillum said Saquon has the highest ceiling on the slate, in my opinion. Sure. Look, it's a fantastic spot. Muhammad said Saquon can get there in 15 touches. If you told me that if you were locking in 15 touches for Saquon, I would have 0% of him today.
He's $9,000, so it's a lot different.
According to our friend in chat the other week, salary doesn't matter. Just play the matchup.
Play the matchup. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a very nuanced situation with that. It's all relative to the slate, because what is an effective game? What is getting there? Would you take 20 from Saquon? I would say definitely not. Would you take 30? Probably. Would you take 30 if the 4 and 5K guys get 26? Probably not. Do I want to spend an extra 3K for 4 extra points? No, I don't. So it's not just about him, but it's pretty clear that if the Panthers stay competitive, the volume should be there. And if the volume is there, Saquon should have a big game.
Yeah, Fistula Poop, with the most repulsive name in the YouTube chat weekly, said not only that, when Barkley scores 30 plus, no other running back comes close. I think that's where we disagree vehemently. Like, if Barkley scores 30 plus and you've got a bunch of other cheap guys or mid-range guys at 25, you'd rather have the 25.
Definitely, because then you're like, okay, you have 30 whatever and I have 25. I have Justin Jefferson and you have, Ray McLeod. Because the salary, that's how the 2v2 would work or something like that. And I think I can make up those points at wide receiver.
By the way, all of that is to say that I'm still getting to Barkley, but I am under the field on him right now. And I think, look, whenever we do this, you have to kind of talk out of both sides of your mouth in the sense of, could I see Barkley going for an insane game? Absolutely. This spot's fantastic. They're huge favorites. Maybe he is chasing records, and maybe Nick Sirianni, I wouldn't put it past him, is doing what he can to get him those opportunities. I also wouldn't be surprised to see Gainwell, who didn't have a single carry last game, we get more of a role in a spot like this if they are able to move the ball as much as they want. So, look, this is just a personal decision. For me, personally, I think the position is loaded and there's some really great players in some really great price ranges. So that's why I'm not overloading on Barkley this week. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I agree. It's really just a situation of, do you want to allocate your salary there? You're 2 touchdown favorites. He's got a lot going for him. And we'll see. I mean, it's all probabilities. Listen, when you do these things, if you speak in absolutes, even though it sounds cool, you're just doing everyone a disservice because there's just a range of outcomes. That's how all things work.
What are you doing with the pass catchers? Dallas Goedert's on the IR. So that's Calcaterra going to come back into the fold. Devontae Smith is back, and he's the cheapest he's been, God, in a long time. He's cheap. A.J. Brown is not cheap. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat when you're the Philadelphia Eagles facing Carolina, which is both a good thing and a terrible thing when you're trying to figure it out from a DFS standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't see these type of spreads too often, and it's always a little tricky because, like, that's more of a college take of, like, blowout equity. You know, very rarely are NFL guys gearing down. But, you know, with a team that has a lot to play for in the future, I think it is possible that some of the volume is mitigated for a guy like Saquon today.
All right. Really? Basically, just not getting to the pass catchers.
Again, I mean, if you want to spend for A.J. Brown, you're going to get, I mean, just look at it. It's on the screen. The ownership outside of Saquon in this game is wide open. You're not going to get a ton of it. So you don't need a ton. And A.J. Brown's the type of guy, the 2 touchdown game is always there. I don't think I want a luxury spend for the Eagles stack, though. It's just so expensive.
I hear you. And my only thought there was that, like, by far the chalkiest play from this game, from this team, is Barkley today. Devontae's super cheap. If you went with a Hurts double stack, that's actually going. I would imagine that's going to be very unpopular this week.
You think?
I don't think it'll be popular. Do you?
No, I don't think it'll be popular either, I guess, but
I don't know. I think guys like A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are going to be extraordinarily low owned. Just throwing it out there.
Okay. No, I don't disagree.
I might take a couple shots. Might take a few shots. It might just be like in one of the mid-stake single entry stuff and just take a shot.
One-offs. Like I wouldn't mind getting to like one off of A.J. Brown.
Bill Pelfer with the super chat. Thanks, Bill. Thank you both for all the advice weekly. Ben, Austin P. Son plays football there.
Nice.
Let's go. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I root for them in mostly basketball, but that's awesome.
Cleveland at Pittsburgh. No Cedric Tillman again. So there's that. Jamari Thrash is questionable, but your boy anyway. Jamari Thrash wasn't the answer on the primetime game anyway.
You don't say.
No, he wasn't. Anything from Cleveland you want to get to here? The guy's now top 5 in receiving yards on the season, which is insane. Strictly because of Jameis Winston. I'm not getting to the backfield here. I'm simply not getting anywhere near the backfield. Any arguments you want to make, though, for guys like Judy, Elijah Moore, David Njoku, because if there's one thing we know, Jameis Winston is going to chuck even in a tough spot in a lower total game as a big dog.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of think is interesting. You know, you come off a game where, once again, turnovers, all of that stuff with Jameis, but it's just who they are and who he is. And I don't think it's something that's correctable, honestly. I really don't. So it's just like Cleveland just has one way forward, and it's just to keep doing what they're doing. And Judy's going to have his chances. There's no doubt about it. The Steelers have been a tough team for me because I maybe it's just like, you know, embedded in who the Steelers are. These games are out of control. You know, these like 40-point shootouts at times. And I just don't, it's just not how I think the game script is going to go. And even here, 43.5 is not screaming crazy game, but sometimes the way that Cleveland plays can almost devalue or devolve the game to just a crazy up and down. So I'm not getting to Jameis. Njoku's, I mean, everyone's talking about Judy. Njoku had 17 targets in the game against Denver, like quietly.
That is That is like Judy had a huge game. You're right.
Yeah.
How did Njoku have 52 yards on 17 targets?
I don't know.
And two touchdowns, but like he still had a phenomenal game.
Oh yeah, it's just, I mean, this is the type of volume that just supersedes matchup, conditions, skill. Like if you're going to get those type of numbers, now he's not going to get 17 targets again, but
And Winston might not throw 58 times again.
that would be doubtful. But you could see some of that. They are going to be probably trailing on the road here. Again, a team more of a one-off than a stack. I'm not getting to the Jameis stack. He's always in play because he's a high variance player. But to me, getting to Njoku or Judy is very reasonable just because of the potential upside.
I'm getting to all three of them, including Elijah Moore. Yeah.
Okay.
A ton, no, but I have like 15% Judy, 8% Moore, 8% David Njoku. I'm not going to make any adjustments there. I know I've talked about it a lot this year, but I'll say it again. The AFC North is different now. Like this used to be, remember, not even that long ago. You and I, even when we were doing shows, would talk about, oh, well, it's an AFC North game. No surprise, 41-point total. Give me the under, right? Like all the time. Steelers, Ravens, Browns, Bengals. Now, these games are like Bengals, Ravens, both times this year. Massive shootouts. I don't count the last Browns and Steelers game because it was in like a legitimate whiteout. But what was the one just the other? Oh, that was Browns and Broncos. Oh, Bengals and Steelers last week.
That's what I mean. It's just
41-38. So I'm not saying that's how this plays again, but to your point, the style of play for Jameis Winston is going to just kind of contribute to that week over week. So yeah, I'm not getting away from it just because it's a tough matchup. It's not even that cold in Pittsburgh. It's not terrible weather. I'm with you. What about the Steelers side? George Pickens he said he's going to play, but he has to test the hammy out. I never feel great about that.
No, again, I guess it's going to be the theme. I always seem to have one. The range of outcome shifts a little bit just because all it takes is one little aggravation and that's it. Hammy's like the single worst thing I'd want my guy to be dealing with. I didn't have a ton of interest in Pickens either. Najee, I think, is kind of interesting at flat 6, mostly just because of how the slate unfolded. It's not to say I don't like the play, but you just look at it. We haven't started to talk about, I mean, we know Garendo, Charbonnet, Braylon Allen types. We haven't talked a ton about Kamara, Bijan, HN yet. The middle of it is wide open, and I think Najee's a little lost there. The volume still should be there. I mean, the guy had 6 targets and 16 carries. He's got 15 or more carries in 6 straight games. He's going to be busy. So I think you can go to Najee and feel pretty good about it.
Definitely. I don't love it, but he's in my pool. He's in the pool. Eugene said weather report for Pittsburgh, 15-mile-per-hour winds, 25-mile-per-hour gusts. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, that's still really not all that like impactful. If you look at winds picking up like 20 plus sustain, I don't, and it hasn't affected the total last I looked either. So like, if you really want to see how much you anticipate weather affecting a game, look at where the total is and all of that stuff. And from everything I'm seeing, this total hasn't budged, Ben. So again, when I say there's not a lot of weather, I mean, there's nothing significant enough to move the line and nothing significant for me to move how I'm playing a game.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
I'm like you said, hammy and groin. Those are the two that the re-aggravation always scares me. And
for wide receiver. Oof.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And even like Freiermuth today, not a huge interest. He's fine, but tight end, believe it or not, is pretty stacked, both at the top, mid-range, and at the bottom. Not a lot there. Vegas and Tampa is a fun one, though. The Raiders are 6.5-point dogs. It's a 47-point total. What is this? Raymond James Stadium, I believe they refer to it as. But high total, and it's going to be nice weather. No surprise there in Florida. Jacoby Myers expected to play, tweaked his ankle, but I think he's fine. Madison's doubtful. Zamir White's out. So I did see myself getting like some trace amounts of Amir Abdullah. And that's if you're, isolating 150 lineups. I don't think you'd be getting much Abdullah on this slate otherwise. Plus, they like your boy Sincere McCormick a little bit there as well.
Gotta like him. Yeah,
So
I mean,
ultimately, I probably fade the backfield, but I mentioned to you on Tuesday that the Aiden O'Connell at his price, probably playing from behind, they can't run the football. They have two legitimately good pass catchers in Bowers and in Myers. And if you wanted to take it a step further, I don't even hate the idea of sprinkling in a bit of a Trey Tucker in some of these stacks because look, has he been getting a lot of volume? No, but he ran more routes than anyone on the team last game. He played 97% of snaps. Turner's on the IR. So, right, Turner's the one on the IR. And I think he went on the IR after that. Let me make sure.
yeah, he did. He played like 20%. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, he played like, I think 25% of snaps last week.
Yeah, 22% of snaps. Terrace Marshall played 24%. But what I'm saying is you might just see like Jacoby Myers, Jacoby Myers and Tucker and Bowers out there for essentially the whole game.
They're definitely going to be out there. They're definitely going to be busy. And you convinced me. These O'Connell builds are pretty easy to get to, and they're nice. Now it's O'Connell. But if he can throw a couple and the target share is super condensed, I get it. You've got three guys to choose from, and the Raiders, despite being a team that, I'm not in love with, they're really, really useful for the slate, either as a stack, as a pay down option, or, I mean, how nice is it to have a Myers or Bowers in any type of lineup? They really fit what you want to do today.
They do. And again, I go back to this often, but you don't need the insane game here. You need one of them. Like you need one of Bowers or Myers to have a big game if you're trying to get there. But you could still theoretically be in contention, Ben, with just a pretty serviceable game with this stack because of how cheap it is.
Yeah, again, you're not only getting what I think is a pretty solid spot, you're really allocating a lot of salary for the remaining spots. So I get it. I like I said, I like Myers and Bowers in any type of lineup, and then I do have I ran a prelim and I made a couple lineups already that I'm pretty happy with. I have an O'Connell, Trey Tucker, Bowers lineup that I do like the look of it.
Okay, so no Myers, but Tucker in there.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's different, but I kind of like the look of it.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. Let me see. Am I getting the Trey Tucker? Because I might give Tucker the old boost here a little bit. I'm not really getting any. I might boost him just a little bit to get some, because if you're on the field that much and we think they have to throw, then that could be a guy that you're looking to get to. Now with Tampa, Bucky Irving's expected to play. He's coming off a career game. I love this guy.
Yeah, he's the man.
He's awesome. You and I liked him coming into the league. But I'm also not the biggest Rachaad White fan. So I've been very high on Bucky Irving. Eventually, like, this guy's got to take over. And it appears that it's trending in that direction. I wouldn't chalk him up for 25 carries here. He's also dealing with that hip. But, I think Bucky Irving as a touchdown favorite, very much in play. I like Mike Evans. I actually gave this stack a bit of a boost, Ben. I haven't made many adjustments. This is one adjustment I made. Baker Mayfield, not a guy to come off with two back-to-back terrible games, and they still got the win last week. You don't have Godwin, but I think Cade Otton is still very much in play now that his price point is bottomed out, low 4Ks. Mike Evans without Chris Godwin against a very bad Las Vegas secondary. Also a Vegas team that last week may have just totally spelled the end for everybody after you find a way to botch what should have been a win, like the biggest win of the season for anyone against Kansas City. All that in mind, I like really both sides of this game quite a bit today. I have a lot of exposure to this game.
There's a lot to like. Again, either as a bring back or just independently. Yeah, Mike Evans looks to be over. You never want to say completely healed, but seems like he's avoiding rear aggravation. He had 12 targets against Carolina. Bucky, I agree. His volume won't be to that. And that game went to overtime. Keep that in mind. But the Bucs are in a good spot. I think I prefer them as one-offs more than the Baker stack, but I think this is a game that me and a lot of other people want to get overweight on the game itself. And it's just one of my favorites on the slate.
Yeah, Me too. Mad Hands super chat. Thanks. I won 100K Wednesday with your Bogdan pick. Thank you. Well, it wouldn't have been Ben or me. It would have been either Eric, Greg, probably, or Josh. One of those.
Maybe it was Jordan behind the glass.
Yeah, maybe. I'll send it along and we'll ship that super chat to him in the process. Brandon Wagner. Any credence to them feeding Evans to get him 1K yards? That's a fun question.
No.
I don't, here's the thing though. I don't care. And that's not to disparage your question. It's like, if they want to move the football through the air, Evans is just by far their best option anyway. Right. And they have what do they have? 4 games, 5 games to go, 5 games. And he needs 479 yards or something looking at this. So no, I wouldn't look at it like that. I would look at it as Mike Evans is by far their best pass catching option. And he's coming off a 12 target game and he's just good.
And they need these games. Like he needs to get to 1,000 yards, not to get to 1,000 yards so they can win football.
Exactly.
Games. Yeah.
Like don't forget, like I think a lot of people, what they in recent memory is probably just Tampa losing a bunch of games straight and playing really competitive against San Francisco, taking Kansas City to overtime. The Baltimore game was a rough one when everybody got hurt, but they lost a bunch of games straight. They're still 6-6, tied for first in the division with the Falcons team that's a 6-point road dog in Minnesota today. So, like, this is all hands on deck, like full foot on the pedal. What I mean, Ben, is like the NFC South is bad. And despite all of the injuries, they're still very much like, I would say if I haven't looked, but I would put them, if I were setting that, I'd put Tampa as the front runner to win the division.
I mean, might be by default, but yeah, I get it.
I think they're, but I think they're a good football team. I'm not saying I think they're a Super Bowl team.
They're the only ones that can say this. They beat the Lions.
You're right.
Like they're the ones who went in there and won.
Yeah. I put it this way. Do you think Baker Mayfield's good?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is what he is. He's good enough. I'll say that.
Then the Bucks are the Bucks are a good team. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's not he doesn't prevent them from doing anything. That's what I'll say.
Bucks and Falcons both minus 115, by the way. So there's that. But top plays I'll give you mine. Top plays from this game. Pick your poison, seriously. I like O'Connell. I like Bowers. I like Myers. I like Bucky Irving, Evans, Baker, Otten, Tucker. Like that's 8 guys I think are fully playable for this game.
Oh, definitely fully playable. If I had to drill down a little, it would be the obvious Raiders pass catchers for me. I like Myers and I like Bowers. And I like honestly, it's the pass catchers. I'm not getting to the Raiders backfield at all. And I don't mind Bucky, but I prefer a lot of other guys in that range.
Is some of that, just to put a bow on this game, because I kind of feel the same way. Is some of that just to do with the fact that there's still uncertainty on the split in this backfield? Like Rachaad White could just end up still being pretty involved, and Bucky Irving is dealing with an injury.
It's just there are so many little factors that if one comes to fruition, it's a problem. He could be limited because of an injury. He could be limited because it's a fluid situation with the backfield in terms of personnel. He could just have not a good game. He could have a good game and all the other value at running back outscore him. So it's just, there's a lot of ways that Bucky Irving doesn't get there today, and there's not as many that he does. He's still a really good player, but that was super, super work last week. I don't think we see that again.
Plan B smoothies. Yes. Badgering me about telling me happy birthday, which would be a very kind gesture, Ben.
Not your birthday, though.
If in fact it was my birthday. But thank you, Plan B smoothies. Did not ignore you, did not miss you.
Yeah, we had a couple super chats in there. I'm trying to get to one. We had one from Eric Mullen. That was a good one. You can
just go into the thing up top on the chat and click fan funding and it'll pull all them up for you.
I never knew that. Eric Mullen, his first super chat. First of all, welcome to the club. Love the show. Just starting using the tools and having improvements. What is the total team ownership percentage you recommend staying under? It's a good question. The answer set, or maybe you have a different one. is honestly, I don't really worry about that because it's so different depending on the lineups. And what I'll say is the tools kind of take that into account. If you have a super, super chalky lineup, the dupes, the leverage, the percent chance and the ROI is going to be mitigated. So I really don't have like I have to be under 180% in my lineup. I don't know if you do.
I don't even really look at it that much because so much of it is the individual build itself.
Exactly.
And, yeah. Thanks for the super chat. And glad you're loving the tools, Eric, for sure. Goody. We have one from Goody. Absolutely shocked not getting to Wilson or Winston. Feels like Vegas has been off the over-under for the Steelers games. Yeah, look, they've been weird games for sure. And he probably hit us with good etiquette on that one. And I just
he did. He did.
He just missed it. I'll say this. I'd rather just I don't love Wilson in this spot because if I'm stacking Wilson, I just want Pickens in that lineup.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And the Pickens injury worries me. Just to further along what I'm saying here.
Yep, same mindset.
No problem getting to Winston though. Ben laid that out nicely. Atlanta at Minnesota. All right, so what's the deal? Kirk Cousins can't throw anything more than 10 yards downfield at this point. I'm serious. Like he's been incapable of doing that.
If he has a bad game today, Penix is coming.
I think so. And they got the Raiders next week in Las Vegas. It's very possible because this is not one of those, maybe earlier in the year, you could have made the argument you would have been able to because they were playing good football. Like Penix Jr., he's watching from the sidelines all year. But now, what a precarious situation they're in. They're 6-6. They've dropped 3 straight games or something, and they haven't played good football. Kirk Cousins is the sole reason they lost that. I don't know if you watched any of that. Atlanta's defense played their best game all year. They had 9 sacks coming into that game against the Chargers, right? 9 sacks, Ben, on the season coming into that game. They sacked Herbert 5 times. They finally, for the first time all year, got pressure. They made life miserable for that Chargers offense. The Chargers had nothing going. The 4 interceptions from Kirk Cousins are the only reason they lost that game. I watched a lot of that game, and all I could think of as I looked down at the scoreboard was, how are the Falcons not up by 3 scores?
Yeah, I mean, turnovers are the single most important thing to winning and losing, and they're extremely high variance in terms of those. Now, Cousins' turnovers weren't high variance because he was literally lobbing the ball to the defenders, and anyone could catch that. But the Falcons are still a team, even in a tough matchup, that I like. Not really for Cousins, but for Drake London and certainly for Bijan. They have 2 straight alphas that I think are perpetually underpriced, to be honest. I know the matchup is tough. I know at times they're competing with a lot of names, but I love Drake London today. I think he makes a lot of sense. Bijan's in a tougher spot, but I still want to try to make room for him just because he has been unbelievable all year. And you and me have talked about this on the First Look show. His workload is simply not going away. Target share, everything is just right where I want it.
It feels like not enough people are talking about the Bijan Robinson workload shift over Algier lately.
Yeah, I mean, this is one, believe me, I got a laundry list of ones that are in the bad category, but I've been on Bijan pretty much all year, and he's really, really exceeded expectations. And I'm really shocked that there hasn't been as much buzz around it. It feels like people are not taking notice of how consistently good he has been all year. And I'm really excited to just continue to buy on him, even though I will say, I think in this specific slate, it's not the ideal situation.
Agreed. You and I were heavily overweight on him last week. Didn't matter for me. I still got crushed. I had a bad week last week, but
remember, but he was helpful. He definitely was helpful.
Yeah. Me. He was good. He had almost 30 and he had a ton of work.
Oh yeah. I had, Herbert killed me last week.
Yeah. Why do you think I remember what Atlanta's defense did? Because I'm watching a lot of that game just going, this doesn't make any sense. But Bijan's kind of an odd man out for me this week at that price. I don't want him to be, but I'm just not getting as much Bijan. Last week, I found it way easier for me to kind of massage my way into getting more Bijan. That's not happening so far right now.
And I'm more on that wavelength as well this week. Now, I'm going to probably do what I can to at least make sure I have him in some key stuff because I just really do like him as a macro buy. But last week I was closer to saying I was jamming Bijan, and this week I'm saying it's closer to that I'm going to try to make room for him on a slate that if I wasn't actively doing that, I might not get any, to be honest.
Well, there's a player that we're going to talk about in the very next game, okay, that I am making room for today. And I've done this, a few times on the year. So with this very specific player. So we'll get there. I would assume you know who it is just by looking at the sidebar. Oh, it's not up there. But it's in the Jets-Miami game, and it's not Braylon Allen. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I know what we're talking about.
Yeah. But I like Drake London today, too. Cousins, I don't really care that Cousins is facing his former team. It's just one of these things where Drake London is still ultra talented, and the volume that he's getting. When I look at last week, as bad as Cousins was, Drake London's 16 targets in the game, 9 for 86. At 6,400, I think you're just getting good value on him. But he's really the only guy for Atlanta that I'm getting to any considerable volume. Aside from that, it's not like I'm getting much Kyle Pitts when tight ends as loaded as it is. I can't imagine I'm getting to a lot of Darnell Mooney or Ray McLeod. So it's largely Drake London from that side of the game for me.
And I get it. Yeah. I mean, Kyle Pitts is tough. I wanted to kind of try to be sneaky and buy there, but his snap count is going down, and I'm just a little freaked out by that. So for me, I'm going to stick to the big two. And then on the other side, I'll keep it very simple. I like Justin Jefferson today. Not breaking news, but I've got the money for him and I'm going to get him.
Okay. What ways are you making the money for him?
I mean, it's the pretty standard way. My running backs are freeing him up as a one-off. I'm not getting to Darnold, but I have the money to go take a wide receiver. And sure, AJ Brown is a consideration. Tyreek's a consideration. Maybe an attachment to my stack is a consideration, but Jefferson is just in a nice spot for me. I like him. I like his props. I was doing some work, of course, on the odd chopper side this morning, taking a close look at him. So I'm just buying on Justin Jefferson today.
It's kind of crazy that he's over 1,000 yards because it doesn't feel like it.
I mean, he's quietly having a very good season again, but it's just he had 5 touchdowns in his first 6 games, and he has not scored since week 7.
I know.
So he also, it's one of those years. Perfect example against Arizona. He landed on 99 yards. These little things, they start to slowly erode your narrative of how good you're playing.
100%. You see that triple digits in there when you're surfing the box score, things start to look a whole lot different. You're right.
Yeah, you get an extra 3 points, so he got the bonus.
Yeah. And he should have had multiple touchdowns against Jacksonville. That's the game Darnold threw 3 interceptions in the end zone, all 3 on targets to Jefferson. So
yeah, I mean, it's there. Big game's coming.
There. I hear you. I can't go to Aaron Jones right now. Didn't do it last week, but I mean, God, the fumbling issues. I don't think it's going to permanently put him in the doghouse because he's still the most talented player out of that backfield. But running backs just loaded this week. I have some Justin Jefferson, also a little bit of Hawkinson here. I'm just finding myself outside of the McBride and Bowers, which I have a lot of, really living in this like 10 to 20% range of exposure with a lot of these 4K guys. And then I'll throw Juwan Johnson in there at 3,400. But that's where I'm living with like Ingram and Hawkinson and Cade Otton. But Hawkinson's just another one of those guys that I'm getting around 10% of.
Yep. He's definitely a playable tight end. If he fits the build, I have 0 issues with landing on him.
I have 2% Jordan Addison as well. So my guess, those are Sam Darnold stack attachments.
You would think.
Yeah, because I have 6% Darnold. That's the way I think it plays out. All right. Let's talk about the Jets and the Miami Dolphins. I actually had an under bet that I found from Odd Shopper here on Braylon Allen this week. Oh, by the way, this is the last day of the Cyber Week sale, huh?
This is it. It's been an awesome, obviously, time. So many people have decided to join us and really change the way they bet. I know a lot of people have been saying the same thing. I've been betting for a little while, and I kind of just needed something. I needed something to streamline my process, and this is it. It changes the way you bet. And so if you're thinking about it, this is the last day though for the 70% off Cyber Week. It's a great time to do it. You get right through the holidays. A lot of action.
Yeah, it's $70 off your first week. I have like 80 bets in already today.
Yeah, I did I always do the same thing. I wake up, I do my first round like right in the morning, get, my first batch. Then I usually eat breakfast. Before the show, I pick a couple more off, and then before lock, I'll do another round of NFL.
Yep, same market-based approach, right? Top-down betting. We're identifying the sharp sources, which are different, which can be different across different markets as well. So it's not as easy as just like finding one and blanketing that across everything. Get the true odds, and then you just pick off the bad lines, the bad odds from all of these books. Use the mass entry tool for FanDuel, Caesars, BetMGM, DraftKings. Load up to 20 bets at a time into your bet slip. Just set your wager amount, and boom, you're in. I did it this morning. I was laying in bed. It's like 5:50 a.m. And that's when a lot of times I think, because people use these tools and the lines can change quickly, which is why you want the mass entry tool. I think that's why I get the most early in the morning, because I'm doing it a lot of times, Ben, before anyone's even awake. So some of them have sat there for a little bit, not too long, sat there, like really good positive EV stuff that hasn't really been picked over yet, that I can just jump in on the tools early in the morning.
Not bad at all. And yeah, you can always, the other thing I'll say real quick, if you're like, well, I wonder how much of a value add that is, you can find out for yourself. Our EV results page, you can test things like, hey, how does it perform 6 hours before lock, 10 minutes before lock? How does it perform on certain books, certain sports, things like that? You can see those back-tested results, so you don't have to guess. One of the most common questions I get is like, hey, what's the best time to use the tool? And the true answer is you can see right for yourself if that makes a difference, or, most books, most sports, it really doesn't matter.
Yep. But some, right, like you said, there's some books, even some individual markets for certain sports on a certain book make a difference. That's why when I build my portfolios out, I have them not just built out by sportsbook, but individual sport by individual sportsbook, because a sport is different within each book. That's how I've, and the bet tracker too. You can go in basically like the post contest sim that we have for the sims for DFS. You can go in and essentially see how all of your individual bets by market and time period and sport have done. That's huge. That's huge. And yeah, that's how I set mine up.
I love it. I love it.
Anyway, link in the description. Jordan can throw it in the chat. Use the link, select the month, right? You're getting $70 off. That's 70% off. Use Cyber Week at checkout. If you've been thinking about trying it out, you want to kind of totally revamp the way and minimize the time commitment that goes into the way you bet while making more money. This is the way to do it with Portfolio EV. I use it every single day and have been for a long time. Check it out. Cyber Week promo at checkout. Let's talk Jets in Miami. I'm actually want to start off with the Miami side and get your thoughts here, because Raheem Mostert's not going to play, Ben. And that doesn't mean that Jalen Wright doesn't get involved. I anticipate that he will. They drafted the guy to use him a bit. But I'm also, I wanted to get more Devon Achane than the field and more than I was getting. I wasn't getting any. I actually had to go in and make some pretty big adjustments here. Could I end up regretting this? Sure. But the Jets' biggest weakness, by far, has been that run game. And I think the Dolphins, I think they want to run the football. They've struggled a bit to do so, but they want to run the football. Now, the fact that Sauce Gardner is not going to play is helpful, but he's not even having as good a season as he has in the past. The whole defense has been bad. All I'm getting at here is that I think with Mostert out too, when you're talking about goal line opportunities, even though he hasn't gotten as many lately, Devon Achane's ceiling to me, now that you essentially are working with a two-man backfield and he's going to get the majority of work, it's just so high that when I look at ownership on running backs and I see Barkley up there, I see Alvin Kamara's ownership through the roof. I see so many of these guys with massive ownership, and then there's Devon Achane sitting at 7%. I'm going to try and get at least some of him, and that's the way I'm doing it. Not saying everyone has to. You don't. You do whatever you want. You might be like, well, he doesn't get enough volume. He's just so explosive and so good that if this turns into a game like we saw in week 2 when Mostert was out and they had those injuries, I want a piece of him today.
Listen, great player. We saw it even on Thanksgiving. He had a slow start and then easily could have had a couple touchdowns. Miami really, 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 really needs all these games. So I'm fine with him. You definitely like him more than I do, but I'm gonna make some room for him. And honestly, I'm not. Are you getting to like Jonnu or I think Tyreek is in. So the Jets. One thing that's interesting, I looked at. Typically, the way to attack them would be on the ground, no doubt about it. But if you look at their passing yards allowed per attempt, the last 3 games, it's absolutely crumbled. They were one of the better teams in the league. They're up to almost 8 yards allowed per pass attempt. That would be basically dead last in the league.
I know.
So it's falling apart across the board.
That's what I'm saying too. Like, you talk about Sauce Gardner being out, far less impactful than like a Patrick Surtain this season,
Yeah,
less impactful than a Quinyon Mitchell, who's a rookie in Philadelphia. Like, seriously, he's the man. I'm telling you.
He is the man.
So is Cooper DeJean.
I don't really like that guy, but yeah, he's all right.
He's been awesome.
No, he's a good player. I'm just, I like Mitchell.
Did you at least see his tackle on Derrick
Henry?
I mean,
yeah,
stood him up. Granted, Henry caught the ball in the flat, but details are unimportant here.
That's right.
Either way, Devon Achane, Richie Small said he's getting talked about a lot, that he's going to get steamed up. I didn't think Achane was getting talked about all that much. With what you're saying, then would you consider some Tua stacks here? Because that is not going to be popular.
I mean, again, when your quarterback doesn't run and you've got those type of weapons, I'm not going to say no, definitely not. But I'll be honest, that I'm more interested in some other type of stacks. We just got a super generous super chat with great etiquette. Try to abide by the etiquette. You did an amazing job. Who benefits from Sauce being out, Hill or Waddle? I honestly think it's more Tyreek, but I think it just kind of is analogous to the role they were going to play originally. I don't think one of them gets a superior boost. I just like Tyreek in this spot a little more. I think they're going to continue to get him involved, and seems good to go to me. I like Tyreek this week.
Yeah,
I'm not really getting to Waddle.
It's just hard for me to fit all of Miami in, even though I think Miami could be the sneaky spot this week. Like, would you be shocked if Miami ended up dropping 30? At this point, I really wouldn't. The Jets defense is just hemorrhaging points lately.
No argument there. It's just a matter. What I'm trying to decipher, not as if I like Miami, it's do I like Miami as one-offs, or do I literally want to consolidate Miami? Because it's not the easiest stack in the world. Their weapons are still, like, you're paying 15 plus for the big two.
I know. What I'm trying to figure out isn't if I like Miami, though. And a little different thought process than you. It's, do I like Miami, stacks more than so many of these other spots? Because you're paying for Jonnu now.
That's what I mean. It's not, I think I just like them independently of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're trying to get this, you got to jam Miami. Like, you have to do it yourself. I mean, you're not just going to naturally end up on a lot of Miami. There's just no chance. What are you doing with Braylon Allen with no Breece Hall? I keep coming back to this Isaiah Davis. I'm just not at all. Last week you saw Breece Hall get the lion's share of snaps. Braylon Allen played, so he played 42. Braylon Allen played 19, and Isaiah Davis played 12.
Yeah, I mean, Braylon Allen, the way I'm factoring it in is he is the worst of the obvious pay down running backs, but that's still pretty good. He's gonna have a role to play. I prefer, who we didn't get to Charbonnet yet. I prefer him, and I prefer Garendo.
So do I, and by a pretty wide margin. What's the ownership on all three of these guys?
I think Allen's going to be the lowest of the three, pretty significantly. Yeah, you got
Charbonnet, super popular. Garendo, pretty popular. Braylon Allen, 13%. Garendo, 20%. We have Charbonnet in large field at 42%. So there's not a huge gap between Braylon Allen and Garendo. There's a massive gap between those two guys and Charbonnet. As, to be fair, there probably should be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right. Then how are you approaching the rest of the Jets? Like, if you were to take this team as a whole?
The Jets? Oh, no, I don't have a lot to say about the Jets. I'm I'm not doing much at all. I mean, they've got weapons on the outside, but good luck deciphering between Wilson and Adams or neither. Just not for me today.
Okay. Okay. Here's a fun one. Favorite play from this game then?
Tyreek.
All right. I'll go Achane. Really, if you're getting any decent amount of anyone here outside of Braylon Allen, you're probably going to be different. So
yeah.
Saints and Giants. All right. Saints 5-point favorites on the road. Dexter Lawrence out for the Giants too. That is not something to ignore at all. I mean, at all. Kendre Miller's expected to play. I talked about it a lot this week. Some people told me I was overthinking it, and they could really be right because I don't really know how to think about this. But, you know, you've had Darren Rizzi, interim coach after Dennis Allen get fired, say that it's a clean slate with Kendre Miller. He's no longer in the doghouse. You're also talking about a guy that, Ben, they did have high hopes for when they drafted this guy. He's just been, you know, interminably injured. And he was drafted in the third round. This guy's a 71st overall pick. That's not nothing. And now you've got him returning with a new coach as a 5-point favorite. They're 70-1 to make the playoffs. If you want to argue that the division's wide open because they're 4-8, fine. But I don't know how many people see it that way. They're still going to play. Do you think, because if you look at like rushing plus receiving, Kamara is still at 128.5. It's still a massive number. Kendre Miller, last I looked, doesn't have a rushing plus receiving, but he's at 28.5 rushing yards. Do you think he takes enough work away today, or does it not even matter because Taysom Hill is out?
I don't think it matters because Taysom Hill is out. You know, Kamara.
So is Alvin Kamara the best running back play on the slate with Charbonnet?
No, I mean, it's just hard to me to overtake running backs that are like sub 5K like that. You just can't replicate.
Really?
Yeah.
So you still wouldn't. So where would you put Kamara today?
Oh, he's towards the top, no doubt about it. Of the pay up options, I think he's the best. Yeah, and I mean, what's not to like? The coach has got to be all hands on deck. He had 23 carries against the Rams. He had 6 targets against the Rams. The thing that this is how I'm looking at it. Okay, if Miller erodes some of the volume, it's not going to be the volume that Taysom Hill was eroding in terms of the quality. He was eroding the worst volume you could get because it was goal line work and like that. They're not going to say Kendre Miller take that role. He may get spelled here and there, and maybe it could be as severe as like a Blake Corum situation we saw last week, which was kind of mind-boggling for the Rams. But I don't see any reason that Kamara doesn't have more touchdown equity now. And you mentioned the Giants are a mess. It's hard not to like Kamara. He's a really solid play, and he's going to be extremely popular once again.
He always is, and he always finds a way to disappoint.
I don't know. I get Kamara more right than wrong.
Yeah.
Just one of those players. There are certain players that like you just get right or obviously wrong, and he's one I always seem to get right.
Who's a player you always seem to get wrong?
Oh, Mike Evans. When I don't play Mike Evans, he's catching touchdowns with 2 hands simultaneously, like double touchdowns on drives. And then when I play him, he has 4 catches for 23 yards on 6 targets.
Well, I hope you're not playing Evans today.
I do have some. Yeah, I get him wrong, and I get Puka Nacua wrong no matter what.
Yeah, well, that's just a tough one.
It's just impossible. There's no possible way to get him right.
To figure that out. Yeah, look, I just don't see any way to get away from Kamara at this point. How much Kamara is the question. If you let Sims or an optimizer do like unadulterated runs, you're just going to get loads of Alvin Kamara today.
Yeah. If you want to get leverage, you need loads of them.
Yeah, it scares me because there's so many good running backs, but with no Taysom Hill, with no Dexter Lawrence, if there was ever actually a spot for Alvin Kamara to go nuclear, this actually is it.
It's a pretty damn good spot. And he needs to. He's not cheap. and he's very popular. So like you better be getting a lot from him if you're going to play him.
Maybe MVS has another 1 reception and 1 touch. The guy has
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. 4 touchdowns on 10 receptions. He's catching up on Nick Westbrook-Akina.
That guy.
But the only pass catcher I'm really interested in here is Juwan Johnson. I think Juwan Johnson's actually a pretty nice play today. And he's affordable. The Giants stink. Defensively, the injuries on the defense are nothing to overlook. And he played 70% of snaps last week. Taysom Hill's got the injury. He was their best rusher and pass catcher recently. So it's Juwan Johnson, it's Alvin Kamara for me. Those are the 2 guys I'm looking to.
Yeah, and again, they work. Juwan Johnson not only is a good play on his own, if you're leveraging, if he happens to randomly catch 2 touchdowns, the path for Kamara to get there at that salary is so much shorter and narrower. So he's doing 2 things at once if he has a good game.
We're over 550 likes.
Yeah, we're climbing up there. We got a lot of people in here, though. I have a feeling we're going to have a nice surge right to 913.5.
330 people hanging. The ratio is not terrible, but I think some people, they just forget. It's just, you say, hey, I don't mind. Tap that thumbs up.
They're too busy yelling at me in chat that Blake Corum is the running back 1 on the Rams. So
yeah,
right.
Because of 1 game.
Sure. Go blue.
Was it Chaz saying that you don't watch football?
I wish
Chaz, if you've watched any football with Sean McVay, then like to make assumptions, bold proclamations off of 1 game.
It'll be a third running back today.
Non-football watcher.
Cam Akers will come back to the team.
Yeah. Anyway, hit that atonement button. That's what they should just name it to. It's not the thumbs up. It should be an atonement.
Talk to YouTube. You have
what symbol would you make it then? Like what symbol would be?
I don't know, like the emoji with just like the hands.
Yes, okay.
Maybe. I want something better than that, but I can't really think about it.
Anyway, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Prayer hands.
Kyle Heck said praying hands. That might just be the praying hands. I'll see if they can fix that for us. We'll see by next Sunday if we get there.
Very good.
Actually, that's a great idea. We should be able to create our own custom stuff for our own channels.
That's not a bad idea.
I'll talk to our...
That actually is a pretty good idea. You really should be able to design different buttons.
Right?
Yeah.
Like an old school MySpace page where you could do some certain stuff. And, you should be able to have your own page look like that. I'll get on that. Jordan, get on that. Hit him up. All right. For the Giants, the fact that Neighbors is expected to be limited if he... a lot of times I'm willing to take shots on these spots if a guy gets nuked in ownership. But the problem is it's also Drew Lock. So I need so many different things to go well. And I need so many different things to go right for this to even have a chance. And that doesn't feel good. I want your thoughts on Tracy, but I also am curious. Like if this game does stay close, I meant Neighbors, what do you think of Tyrone Tracy? He's good. He just game scripted out of everything lately.
Yeah, he is game scripted out of everything. I don't like the Giants in the game. And he's in that, it's a blessing and a curse. He's in no man's land on the slate. You have to beat these pay down running backs, or you have to beat like Najee, Pollard, who we haven't talked about yet. There's some other names there. So I don't like the Giants at all today. They are down there with Carolina for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the spot for them. I get it. I mean, you have pieces, particularly Neighbors, but I have pieces in the same range that I would prefer, particularly Tyreek.
I'm having trouble too.
Or Drake London. Yeah.
I would love to get to some Tracy, but the opportunity cost, even at that price point, is really difficult.
Very difficult.
Jacksonville, Tennessee. All right. Trevor Lawrence on the IR. What did you think of that hit last week?
What do you mean? I thought it was highly illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed kind of illegal. But the number one thing that comes out of that, if they change one thing, is there needs to be a personal foul level 2 and it renders all the future personal fouls within that play useless. You can't have offsetting penalties when something like that happens and it starts a melee. That's insane. Like, it has to be a penalty that supersedes the other penalties in terms of what actually happens.
Do you
That's
think a
insane.
quarterback needs to like do a little bit to protect himself, like to prevent that type
Hard.
of stuff?
You and Tom Brady. Yeah, for sure.
What about Brady?
He said that too. He's like,
Wow.
you gotta, how early? It's amazing. You slide early and everyone's like, what a moron. He didn't get the first down.
Yeah, but don't I?
Are you serious or are you just screwing around?
What?
Or you said, are you serious? Because you have the little smirk.
No, I think I think it was an illegal hit. But
You don't say.
what I'm saying is like when you have players flying at full speed, I just think maybe it's a little bit different for us to armchair quarterback situations than players to be on the field trying to instill punishment on opponents, which is their job.
I'll say this. If that was the case, then that should happen. If that happened in every game, every week, I would agree with you. But clearly, it's preventable because every other person is able to not do that.
You're right. And that's why I think it was illegal. Like
if it happened all the time, I'd be like, you know what? You're going that fast. It's just impossible to stop.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. They seem to avoid that at every turn somehow.
But I will say, I've also seen a ton of times where defensive players let up and the quarterback goes for like an extra 15 yards.
Yeah, the Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett invented that. It's disturbing.
It's brilliant, and he's just taking advantage of the rules. I haven't looked at chat. I'm sure I'm getting excoriated for this one. But
no, I don't know. I don't know what they're talking. But yeah, I just feel strongly that you can't have offsetting penalties.
Yeah. I hear you. Anyway, you like anything from Jacksonville today?
I mean, the team is completely lost. There's no chance I go to that backfield.
No, can't do
if
it.
you want to go to Brian Thomas, this is a guy that obviously has got a lot of talent. He had 10 targets last week. Easily could be trailing. Don't fear Tennessee's run defense. I think should be a little feared, but you can pass on them. 3-point spread, Brian Thomas or pass.
Yeah, I have a little bit of Evan Ingram because he's, affordable, but I'm not taking any stands on this team whatsoever. Okay, here we go. I'm going back to Calvin Ridley, Ben.
Me too. For sure.
The Sims keep feeding me, but I would have gotten there anyway. I can't fucking live this guy down, now it's a home against Jacksonville. Titans are coming off an embarrassing loss.
They're all embarrassing.
What?
I said everything they do is embarrassing, so that's no different.
It's so true. But listen, this. A lot of times teams coming off terrible losses, like really embarrassing losses, they actually do come out the next game. It's just not like 100% of the time. But a lot of times they do come out the next game and compete. And, this team doesn't really have anything to play for either. But I'm going to end up on Ridley this week again.
I am too. I even have a little Levis skinny to Ridley, so I get it. The only thing I disagree with is that Tennessee has come out after shameful performances and done more shameful things repeatedly this year. So I don't expect some type of it's just Calvin Ridley truly. I mean, we joke about it, but he's running pretty poorly and his counterpart is running hotter than the sun. That's just touchdown variance. There's just nothing to say about that. It just is what it is. And Ridley had 7 targets last week. He could have easily had a 100-yard game. He dropped a couple weren't there. Such is life. 5,700 against Jacksonville. Sign me up.
The thing about Ridley is he's quietly been good recently.
Oh, he's a good player for sure.
Yeah. It sucks, but here we go. I have a lot of Titans defense too. Not that I talk much about that defense, but I think it's a good spot. And I have a little bit of Tony Pollard.
I like Tony Pollard this week. I like him more than you do.
Do you?
Yeah.
I have a little bit, no problems there, but I'm not like hitching the wagon to Tony Pollard.
Neither am I, but I just think that there will be people that look, and the game last week was not even remotely related to anything. The game was over in 10 minutes. So 8 carries means nothing. That's just not a real data point.
So looking at this one, basically a little Thomas, maybe a little Ingram, and then Calvin Ridley And for you, a decent amount of Tony P.
Yep. I have the Titans defense too.
Okay. Seattle, Arizona. Nice. We're over 3,500 people hanging out with us this morning. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for making this your DFS destination on Sundays. Seattle and Arizona. If I had to work on Sundays, at least we're doing this show. You know what I mean?
I hear that.
Seattle and Arizona, 44.5-point total. This is a fun game. This whole division's so evenly matched. I know that there's a deadlock between Arizona and Seattle, but you can't tell me that San Francisco or the Rams are all that far behind them. It's like when you look at these four teams and you put any of them on here's a fun question. If you put any of these four teams on a neutral field, right? What's the biggest spread with any matchup you would actually see? 2?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know who would be fit. Like,
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Put them on a neutral field. I'm not sure that any one team would be like, would any of them in any matchup be more than a field goal favorite? I think the answer is no.
Probably not. And the craziest thing is if it is, it's that shockingly, it's the Niners who are probably the one. Because like Niners might be just truly out of gas at this point.
Yeah. But early in the season in a neutral field, they'd be touchdown favorites over
all of them.
Yeah. Maybe not Seattle. Maybe even Seattle. Anyway. Charbonnet, it's just, you can't really get away from it. You could try and tell me whatever you want about this spot, that he's no good or this or that. And maybe you'd have an argument that the guy isn't great, but in weeks 2 and 3, when you had no Walker, he played 96 and 84% of snaps. He's already been playing like anywhere from 35 to 50% of snaps. And now Walker's out. I don't think they intend on getting cute with any of these second or third running backs today. Charbonnet just seems like it's a full go.
Definitely another Michigan back. So you know they're legit. Yeah, I mean, Charbonnet is just in a great spot. And these two teams just played, and I absolutely love the spot, and I absolutely got butchered. I bet the over in it, and it was a terrible game. But having watched it intently, I actually thought the optics were pretty good. Both quarterbacks had over 30 passing attempts. It was shitty weather up there. Clearly, this would be a better situation. So I like this game. And Charbonnet, like most people, he's going to be my most popular, player on the slate.
Jameis Boyce says, no way is Arizona, Seattle a great game, Laffy. I think it is. I like
No, it is. I like this game too.
Yeah. And I'm now on the Arizona band. Like, obviously I'm an Eagles fan, but I'm on the Arizona Jonathan Gannon bandwagon now. I like him.
Yeah,
they shouldn't be this good, dude. They were expected to be one of the worst teams in the league with this defense has made more out of nothing than any defense in a long time. Is that even an argument anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Kyler guy, and I don't know what it is, but they are playing good football. I'll give them that.
I'm getting a lot of McBride today. I think I threw him in my touchdown round robin over there in Discord, Ben. I think.
Yeah, I got to make mine.
73 receptions, 0 receiving touchdowns this year. I say receiving touchdowns because he recovered a fumble in the end zone.
Damn right.
A touchdown that helped you out in your round robin earlier this year. But Trey McBride's a tough player to get away from. I asked Greg this question. I'm going to ask you. If Brock Bowers and Trey McBride had wide receiver tags, what would their price tags be? Or sorry, wide receiver, not multi-position, but just like they were listed as wide receivers. What would their price point? I guarantee you they would not be 65 and 6,100 respectively.
No, definitely not. I don't know how high they'd be, but particularly
mid-sevens.
Yeah, mid-7. Bowers in particular, like Bowers is going to be mid-sevens as a tight end soon enough. So yeah, I get it. I have some Kyler, I have some Harrison, and I certainly have some McBride. That's really how I want to do it. I don't know what to do with the backfield, to be honest.
I'm not getting to much Connor this week.
Okay, that makes it a little easier. I'm not right now either, so this is a good game, but for me, it's Charbonnet on the Seattle side and then the passing attack on the Cardinals side.
I don't even hate Connor. It's just kind of a casualty of the slate for him. Yeah. Wait, hold on real quick. I don't want to gloss over this entirely. We're actually making decent time, though. We'll be okay. And Matt Gajeski, Eric Lindquist coming up next, taking you all the way to 1. So make sure to stick around for that. Got the injury inactives coming out in 9 minutes. So that'll be big for their show. And if you have questions for them, super chat, stick around. Even if you listen in the background, definitely, building lineups after watching this, definitely keep those guys on, get some great insight. JSN, I thought Metcalf would be the one to not play earlier in the week, but that's not the case. He's in JSN, and I have a decent amount of JSN at his price point, and how about this? I'm actually getting 13% JSN, 11% Metcalf. That's one of my more surprising spots on the day, but it's because I'm actually getting to a decent amount of Geno.
Are you using Charbonnet in those?
Let's see.
Because I think that's an interesting data point of like, if you go to Geno, are you going Geno +2 and isolating the receivers? Are you going Geno +2 with Charbonnet in there? Or are you going Geno +1 and not using the running back?
I'm using Charbonnet in a lot of them.
I think that's what I would do as well.
Although I will say there is some appeal to the Geno Metcalf JSN stack with no 50% Charbonnet on top too.
Definitely some appeal. The difference I see between that and the Kamara situation or someone,
Charbonnet is so cheap that it might not matter.
It doesn't, like, you can't kill him with touchdown equity. He could just get there. Kamara needs to score. There's no possible way to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the difference. Like, even if Charbonnet isn't the primary driver of that stack, it doesn't matter.
No.
So what you're saying is actually the way to get different isn't by fading Charbonnet, but in some spots, maybe to attach Charbonnet to some Seattle stacks.
That people think that I'm going to isolate Charbonnet. Let me attach him to Geno.
I like that.
And then you isolate Charbonnet within Charbonnet exposure to the Geno stacks.
Absolutely. Knockout with a $10 super chat. Much love and respect to both of you for taking time away from your families to offer us expertise advice. Brother, this is a benefit.
Yeah. For both ways, by the way. Like, they're glad that, or I can only speak for me, like, May's very happy that I take time away here. Because if it wasn't, I'd be annoying her with complaining about my college football bets from last night.
Yeah, Knockout, this is in everyone's best interest. Wish you much success in all your future endeavors. Good luck and thank you. Thanks. That was written like an AI bot, but I appreciate you for that very much so. Good luck to you today, my friend. All right. Favorite plays from this game?
Well, Charbonnet for sure, and then McBride, but more so just Arizona passing attack.
Okay. For me, it's going to be Charbonnet and McBride for sure. But the whole game looks good. Honestly, I said this on my betting show on the picks for every game I do on Odd Shopper Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. Everyone come check that out. Very fun video. People seem to enjoy it. I said this could be another one of those games where it's like the 16-6 game we saw the other week between these two teams. They only played a couple weeks ago. Or this ends up being a shootout. Like, this has real shootout potential too.
I just bet the over on this game 2 weeks ago.
Are you going back to it?
I might. I mean, at 44.5 in particular, you get 24-21 equity. Yeah.
Can I tell you why I like it? There are fewer teams that are as unpredictable week over week as the Arizona Cardinals, and to a large extent, the Seattle Seahawks as well. Very unpredictable teams.
I also think there's, again, that's a lot of people see it. It's just like, how can you bet the over? They just played and it was under. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Means
absolutely nothing. Plus, they're divisional teams. That doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah, I might end up doing. I haven't built out my, I bet a couple games so far, but I have a feeling. Well, again, come on in, go join Odd Chopper Tails package. I'll see you in my Discord and we'll find out for sure.
Goody with a super chat. No Stafford, Allen, Cook, Kyron, little bit of Puka and Cup. Oh, look at this guy getting to it before we even did.
I love it.
Thoughts on forcing game stacks? Cost prohibitive. I get it, but seems like a great spot. By the way, thanks as always, Goody. Horrible ROI to be fair. DK 20 max. All right, perfect. Ben, let's dive into this. Buffalo. I love how he sets us up because it's a good question. Buffalo, 3.5-point favorites. No Kincaid. Coleman is a game time decision, so pay attention to that. 49.5-point total. So I think this is probably why Goody's asking this question, because it has such a high. Is this the highest total on the slate? Actually, I think it is. It is,
but it doesn't feel like it to me.
No, it doesn't. And this Buffalo team's been someone mentioned the James Cook contrarian play earlier in the week. And at first I was like, I don't know, it's cost prohibitive. The more I started looking into that, I thought like, man, you might actually be on to something because no one's going to want to play James Cook.
You know what that is?
Stop, say it.
It's
Put
the
it
Mega
up,
Mind
Jordan.
Genius Player of the Week, 100%.
Right?
That
Right?
one actually is, I think, it's not one that I came up with, but that's the type of one. You're not playing some crazy guy. You're just playing a really good player in a slate where why exactly would you play James Cook? There's just so many other spots to go. And that's the best type. It's just crazy. This is the highest total game. And I look and I'm just like, I don't really have a lot. I would love for this game to not go crazy. That's going to be a big problem if it does.
I think I may force a little bit of James Cook in.
I might have to force some of this game in general.
You know, Bunt Cake, Rick won the Millie last month, right?
Yes.
Stokastic sub using the Sims with the straight 3% James Cook contrarian play.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yep.
And he did that manually, right? Like he went in, massaged the tools a little bit, used the boom bust tool, the top stacks tool, and came away with, hey, James Cook looks like a good leverage spot that no one's getting to. And James Cook blew up that week.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's why going back to a super chat we had earlier in the show where it was like total ownership is so it's within the lineup. Like if you can get a really good player at low ownership, that's a lot different than having your defense be like 2% owned, you know, where it's like all the defenses are somewhat interchangeable. So I get it. Josh Allen to me, I mean, of course you want to get to him if you can at times, but man, is it tough. I'm not really getting there.
Me neither.
As much as I thought I would, that's for sure.
Nikki said, Cook will be owned and it won't matter. I truly don't know where you're getting it from that Cook is going to be popular at 7,400.
I don't see how could he be popular, honestly.
You have Garendo, you have Charbonnet, you have Braylon Allen, you have a lot of cheap guys. You have Kamara, you have Barkley, even guys like HN getting more ownership than him. Beach, I don't see you have Pollard getting double-digit ownership on this slate. I simply don't understand. I don't see how Cook gets more than like 5%. Unless, you're just making things up, which is fine. I don't see it. But I'll tell you what, I think if I were going anywhere from this game, my favorite player probably would be James Cook because I don't really, it sucks, but how do I prioritize Kupp or Nakua? Kyron's kind of tough to get to, and you have this whole situation in the backfield now where, like you and I said it earlier, I don't think either of us are convinced now that Blake Corum just ends up taking over, but it doesn't make me feel good about paying a premium on Kyron Williams when you know that Corum could be more involved.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Kyron Williams played fantastic last week. He had 15 for 104. The problem was he could have had like 18 for 120 and 3. Corum did impact him, but I'm definitely not worried about that. I'm more worried that I'm not going to pay $7,300 for Kyron when I can just get to other players in that range. This is tough. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we're talking about the Sims and how we run them and how we adjust them, and with the single lineup Sim and all of the tools, the top stack, boom, bust, you'll see it in chat too. You'll see it all over Hall of Fame. Wally Balls, thank you for gifting those memberships. This guy's been on. I'm not saying you use the Sims, you're immediately going to have that type of heater. I certainly haven't, but it's been a great season. And the tools are just fantastic. If you wanted to get them essentially for free, guys, there's 3,700 plus of you in here with us now. So you might not even know this exists. That first link in the description, or the one Jordan can throw it in the chat. If you sign up with any of our sportsbook partners, you are getting the core Sims package, $100 value for free for the entirety of the month. Like that runs you now all the way through January, like through the end. If you did it now, that runs you straight through the end of the regular season. You can't beat it, man. Like you're getting all of these awesome slates coming up. The Saturday slates, always, Thursday, Monday, Sunday, and Christmas Day games, all of that, and you're getting it essentially free. Here's what you do. Use one of the promos, click claim offer on any of them. And even if you're in a non-legal betting state, right? It doesn't matter. We have it for Better, for Underdog, for PrizePicks, for Sleeper, all of the pick'em sites as well. Click that, click claim offer, sign up, take a minute, do it. Here's what I would say. Do it right after, like, click the links, sign up, deposit, place a bet in the 1 p.m. game. The moment the bet settles, right? As long as you're using claim offer and making the minimum deposit and placing that on a bet, the moment that bet settles, take a screenshot of your first settled bet and take a screenshot of your welcome email. Email it to us at support@stokastic.com and just let us know what sport you want, or sports. If you signed up at Bet365, get your bonus bets and everything else. BetMGM, maybe you're not at FanDuel yet. They have a good bonus bet offer. That's 3 months of whatever sports you want with the core package. Sims, Top Stack, Boom Bust, single lineup sim, premium Discord, post-contest sim, everything, guys. Best way we've ever had the ability to offer access to the tools is right here. Just follow those 4 simple steps. Don't screw the steps up, and you are in. And you've got shit. You'll have the tools by tonight for Sunday Night Football if Ron's around. He does a great job with customer service. But yeah, check it out. No better time. Close out the season, and you got NBA. Link in the description and in chat. All right. Close us out on Buffalo Rams, because I have a tough time here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a tough time because, again, all the weapons in this game are expensive. It's not a game where you're going to have value. It's just, if you want to spend up on this game, you have a healthy total, and I get it. I tended to go elsewhere, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous about that.
Me too.
Can't have everything, though. You have to make some stands.
It might only be a 10-game slate, but it feels like more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm saying there's some really good spots
that
we might not be able to get to.
This is one of them. I'm really, really worried about this game.
I'm worried about that Miami offense too, a little bit, with how
I have pieces at least. This is a gutter ball potentially.
What?
I said at least I have pieces there. This could be a gutter ball situation. Like if Cup goes for 3, I'm done.
Yeah, I got
you. I'm just done.
Yeah. Right, like not even small amounts across, just nothing.
No, yeah. I'm done. I'm watching college basketball. Like,
and the worst is it's a 4 p.m. game, so you could be in a great spot going in the 4 o'clock and then get totally steamrolled. Oh, and a 4:25, I think, at that. So it makes it even worse where you're like, oh, that 4 o'clock game is ending. Seattle. Oh, wait, this one still has a full quarter to go. No fun.
Wow. Pickens is out.
I had a feeling that was good. I had a feeling that was good.
What?
I had a feeling because you said he was going to test it out. You know what? Let's let Eric and Matt lead off with that because we're up against it. That's a perfect spot. I mean, they can lead off however they want, but my assumption is they'll definitely get into that a little bit. It's going to open some things up, though, for sure. That's going to change the way this slate plays out for me. Buffalo and the Rams, wrap it up with this one. Or I'm sorry, Chicago and San Francisco. Down to 3 points. Still some injuries for the Niners. Garendo still looks good to me. I'm still pretty confident they're going to give him the lion's share of work in that backfield this week.
I think so, too. The team is a mess, but they want to run the football. He's there. He's got, obviously, the ability to run the football. Still a competitive spread, so you can get there. And then on the other side, I'll make it very quick. I don't think it's crazy to go right back to Caleb. You have the pass catchers. You can mix and match whoever you want. That's all I'm doing. It would be Garendo, Jawan Jennings, or be a Caleb stack.
No Swift?
No, not this week for me.
All right. Well, Jawan Jennings looks very good. He's simply underpriced. He's the wide receiver 1 right now, Ben.
Yeah, he's playing like it, and he is.
It's him and Garendo for me. And like you said, if you wanted to get some Caleb stacks sprinkled in there, I'm not going to fight you on that at all. Let me just see how much I have before we get out of here, and then we can turn it over to these fellas. Yeah, I have like 6% Caleb Williams stacks. That looks good to me. Nothing crazy, not going to kill my day. Anyway, hey, appreciate you guys hanging out as always. Did we hit 913, Ben? What'd you know? You had 913 and a half likes, right?
913 and a half.
We're at 866.
But We're about to go to 9:13 momentarily. If we could just hang on.
So should I
for
hit
a
a nice
couple-
little outro here?
Yeah, hit an outro because, yeah.
Hey, follow Ben at
Yeah, thank
Jazz
you.
Raz Bets. Check out everything we've got over on the Odd Shopper channel.
Come on, people.
We love you guys. We're appreciative. I'm
There
at
it is.
Lofty_D over on Twitter. I'm going to stop talking the moment it hit.
It hit, so you can get out of here. All right. I'll send us by. Eric Lindquist, Matt Kajeski coming up next. Don't go anywhere, friends. Good luck. Enjoy. We'll talk to you soon.
I just wanted Jordan to cut it the moment it hit. That's what I wanted.
No, don't do that.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Week 14 NFL Live Before Lock here on Sunday. I'm Eric Lindquist of The Wizard of Oz. At Eric Lindquist, you can go follow me there. I got my guy, Matt Kajeski. Does he even understand that reference? We'll find out here in a second. Matt_Gajeski over on the Twitters. Do you?
I've seen The Wizard of Oz. I have. It's my least favorite movie, I think.
Of the four that you've seen?
Exactly. So there's not a lot of competition. Just ranked 4 or 4.
I will pay you $20 to go to Wicked.
Wicked. Is it in the theaters? Or
Yes,
is this a musical?
It's a musical based off of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, geez, I'm not going to that.
Yes, you will. For $20,
No,
you will.
For
50.
$20?
Yes.
No.
Anyway, we've got some news that we're going to start breaking down here at this given present time. Hit that like button. Looks like you guys did a great job for my guys, Lofty, Ben, on the previous show. But we've got a lot to get into, specifically George Pickens inactive. This is something that was definitely on the docket. And, well, with all the Malik Neighbors talk, it's kind of like, oh, pivot. George Pickens inactive here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. One, that makes them a lot less likely to smash a slate here with Mr. Russell Wilson, who has been dominating with George Pickens here the last couple of weeks. But, I mean, we're going to get some cheap pass catchers. We got to talk through them all here right now. So, Jordan Klein, we're getting everything updated here on the projection side. So, it's going to be tough to really get into, like, the ins and outs of where the ownership's going to land. But Who benefits the most, in your opinion, right from the get-go, Matt?
This is actually a really hard one. Almost any other team, I might have more concrete things to say, but I'm just not sure there's another good pass catcher on the team, to be honest. Is the answer maybe Jaylen Warren? Like, are we going to really talk about like Van Jefferson, Mike Williams? Mike Williams still has not played more than 32% of the snaps with Pittsburgh. So, I mean, are we expecting a sharp increase? I mean, it has to go north somewhere, but how much? Do they just use Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington more often? Like, Freiermuth's not even a full-time player. To be honest with you, I think I'm just going to be fully off this team.
I will not be. There's going to be something to mine out. Yeah, I get it. And also, I think this definitely brings Cleveland defense into play. I think that's probably the other part of this. We could also see, with Arthur Smith being your play caller, lots of handoffs to Najee Harris. We could see lots and lots of screen passes to Jaylen Warren. That would not shock me in any way, shape, or form. But when you get like sub 4K pass catchers for like an entire unit, it's hard to say no to everything that's out there. So the first guy is Mike Williams. I think that, you know, the acquisition coming over from the Jets, he had played a lot more snaps. So it's not like some kind of a work usage or a workload usage issue to me whatsoever. It's just do they want him on the field for 50% plus of snaps right from the get-go, considering he hasn't been targeted the last 3 weeks? I would say that's probably the main question mark. Van Jefferson played 42 snaps last week, so I think he probably ends up being somebody at 3,200 that when we update projections might end up being the guy that gets you access to more Kamara, that gets you access to more Saquon Barkley, who is insanely expensive and at a running back position that has so many great cheap options that we will surely get into. Maybe that isn't where you see it. Maybe what ends up happening for me, and I'm very, very high on Justin Jefferson for today against Atlanta. I'm kind of surprised that he isn't getting rolled out in cash in more lineups this week, but that's kind of a discussion we'll get into as well. Van Jefferson definitely could end up being more of the possession type receiver. Calvin Austin, I think we both agree, he's more of like the deep burner type, and he's had some upside. I mean, he scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 5 weeks that he's played here. And Calvin Austin, I don't think he ends up benefiting in some major way, but maybe they're more apt to take a couple of shots here or there with him. And at 3,300, maybe if we get to like some doubles of Russell Wilson trying to get really contrarian, that's something that makes sense. But I think it's probably for me, Van Jefferson, 1, because I've seen him on the field a lot more. 2, Mike Williams, even though there's some uncertainty there. And then 3, I think the Jaylen Warren call is not a terrible one, but 5,500 on this slate in a running back timeshare when we have like 80-90% of the snaps projected for Braylon Allen, for maybe not Braylon Allen, but Isaac Garundo for sure. These are just kind of thinner plays on this slate.
Yeah, I just don't really know if you need to do this. We'll see. I mean, the projections will come out here shortly. My first inclination is I don't want to play any of them.
Okay. That is just fine for an inclination.
I mean, I could be wrong. These guys just all suck.
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth, 3,800. I mean, he's been targeted recently.
Yeah, in the last game. Other than that, he hasn't been.
4 for 4 against Cleveland in the same matchup in the snow. Just out there doing snow angels.
Yeah, he's been above 4 targets 3 times.
Okay. Well, negative Nancy over there.
That's not negative. It just is what it is. You can't call the facts negative when they're just the facts.
No, I'm trying to say that Pittsburgh, I'm trying to put some optimism on some cheapies that potentially give us access.
4 targets is negative?
No, I'm just... To the quarterback position we go.
Targets.
New shiny thing. New shiny thing. New shiny thing. Can we... New shiny thing?
Who's the new shiny thing?
The quarterback position where we have Josh Allen at 8K. We have Jalen Hurts at 7,800. And then nobody else within a country mile over on DraftKings.com. On FanDuel, where you get the rushing upside and you know, anytime touchdown numbers for both of those individuals every single week, sitting with a minus sign in front of it. I think it definitely makes some sense. On DraftKings, though, running the Sims, and things might change here after the fact with the George Pickens news, but I look at Josh Allen as kind of the guy, if you are going to get to this situation, he makes the most sense. But I can't really get myself up to 8K 7,800 unless I'm going to dip into this Pittsburgh pool. How are you feeling about the 2 expensive quarterbacks on today's slate for tournaments?
I wasn't going to be playing much of them, but now with this opening up, the answer I think is maybe. You could run lineups that are something like Charbonnet, Garendo, Braylon Allen. And then if you punt at one of your receiver spots, it's no longer going to be all that difficult to play one of the expensive backs or like an expensive QB. Like you can go all the way up and take this stars and scrubs approach to your lineup. And I think you could end up with lineups that are like, if you wanted to, Hurts and an expensive back, as long as you just punt off one of those receiver positions. I'm not sure about this though, especially with Hurts playing Carolina, who's largely been lifeless this year. Bryce Young's played a little better lately, I guess. But with Hurts in a matchup like this, you're still kind of just banking on Saquon or AJ Brown getting tackled at the 1 and them tush pushing. So he's a little tricky. Josh Allen, I think there's some more interest in just with back and forth in that game and the total. But overall, I wasn't getting a lot of them to begin with. I don't think it's going to change with this Pittsburgh news. I'm not really excited about them, but we'll see.
We will see. That's definitely sure. I mean, Josh Allen, if you can get up there, you get another week too. It's hard to look at anything that happened last week too. I mean, they just dominated on the ground, didn't have to do a whole hell of a lot. 17 passing attempts, Josh Allen throwing to himself or getting lateraled by Amari Cooper, where it was a megamind genius play by him there. Ridiculous stuff. But against the Rams on the road, only 3.5 point favorites. There's a world where when I finish out my lineups, again, I don't know what I'm about to look at here in a second as I'm running the Sims with updated stuff. Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper, both sub 6K. I think there's at least some merit there. It's really hard to get to Jalen Hurts on this slate. You would have to have AJ Brown just eat up all of those touchdowns. And if that's the case, I think I just play AJ Brown and I probably don't spend another, $7,800 to get Jalen Hurts to come with it.
Yeah, it doesn't project super well, price adjusted. That was my first inclination too.
Yeah, because Saquon, I mean, Saquon's doing Saquon things here today, and it's just a question of whether he goes for 45 and you absolutely need him, or if he puts up 25 where I don't think he really matters on this slate, which is a wild thing to say, but that's the Saquon Barkley. What do you have Saquon Barkley projected for in terms of his, this is just a curious play, but I see over at Stokastic right now, 130 yards is what we have him projected for in the advanced stats page.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change the thing.
It's so dumb. I'm just saying that's incredible. But we get into this 6K branch of players, and now we can start having a little bit more fun because these are kind of your dance partners for today on this tournament slate. Again, we have sub 4% ownership on Allen and Hurts. If you want to force a couple of lineups in 20 max, sure, go ahead. But anything in like a 150 set, still not going to be getting to a ton of them. I am going to get a ton of Sam Darnold here in the 6K range. I'm going to get a ton of Baker Mayfield here, sitting sub 8% against Vegas. Vegas defense played pretty well against Patrick Mahomes there. Probably should have won that football game. Coaching, it matters. But those are really my main two guys down here, and they're already popular. I think 5K range, the Sims really, really like for me this week, and I understand why. We'll see once again what changes between, because it's going to look drastically different based on what I'm looking at here a second ago. But how do you feel about the 6K range? Because I have a lot of interest in those two I brought up.
Yeah, I think Darnold is the best play in this range, playing Atlanta's lifeless defense, even though somehow they got 5 sacks last week. They have the worst pass rush in the NFL. This Minnesota offensive line should be just fine. When Darnold's not pressured, he's generally not making as many mistakes. You can always pair him with Jefferson, with Addison, Hawkinson back in the fold now. I think he's very easy to stack up at his price. Baker has like the ultimate stacking partner in Mike Evans. We'll get to them in a second, but also playing Vegas, not really an imposing defense. And I think for tournaments, there's some interesting options in this range. Kyler's at 6K flat. He's just wildly erratic this year. And I think the other player I'm interested in is Tua, playing a Jets team that is consistently overrated in the markets. Their defense is awful this year. And for whatever reason, they continue to get respect. With Tua, the problem is he's just not as easy to stack as last year when we knew the ball was going to Tyreek or Jalen Waddle every play. Now you have Jonnu, Achan's playing a lot more in the pass game. It's just harder to stack him. So I think he'll be a little lower down my exposures with Darnold and Baker coming in as the heaviest on guys.
The Dude Shop 88 member for 7 months. Love to see the badges. Love to see the badges. MVS or NWI. So he is asking us on today's slate, are you more interested in Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Nikhil Westbrook-Akina, or who? He's had a touchdown in every single game but one since week 6. What planet are we on?
I don't know. He wasn't even that good at Indiana.
Well, he seems pretty good now.
He catches a lot of touchdowns. His volume's actually increasing. So I don't. Before he was, I mean, you would think the easiest fade on the planet because he would have like 3 targets and catch a touchdown. But now he's actually seeing some decent target volume. So it's at least more of a question now.
It's definitely Akina for Westbrook Akina for me, just volume based. I mean, if you're taking tournament shot, what you're asking for Marquez Valdez-Scantling, trust me, I've clicked this name a lot in my lifetime. You're looking for that. You're just looking for that deep shot. And, you know, I mean, look at his yards per reception in a couple of these games, 36, 43 against Atlanta and Cleveland, goes for 109, 87 yards receiving in those, but you're seeing 3, 4, and 3 targets. So yeah, you're kind of in a spot where it's like, I just have to tilt the scales towards the volume.
I agree with you.
Awesome. Well, we found an agreement. I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about this 5K range where it is a target-rich environment. Russell Wilson, 5,900, has a ton of cheap stack partners. That's probably the nicest thing I can say, although without George Pickens, you are asking for a lot from Mike Williams and company. Geno Smith, I think the game environment against Arizona, but Arizona's defense continues to surprise me week in, week out. The sum of the parts greater than the whole, or whatever that saying is. Matthew Stafford getting Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp here for another week at 5,700 in a game we expect them to have to throw around the lot to be successful against Buffalo. And Caleb Williams, who has looked better and better and better, but do we trust it here? The upper fives, I think there are a lot of question marks, but Caleb Williams is the most popular of the grouping. Do you have a favorite amongst them?
Not really. I just reran everything because we got all our updates in.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where I'm going to land on exposures for these at this very minute when you're asking. So it's kind of tough to answer. As far as Caleb goes, I guess, you no longer fear San Francisco's defense, and I think the ownership is warranted. I'm not sure if I'm going to play into that because there's a lot of options on this slate in this range and just above it. So, I mean, it's kind of tough to answer right now. We'll see where things shake out for me in just a second here. I mean, you can go on yours if you'd like.
No, it's going to be changing and fluid here. I will say that Russell Wilson, I pretty much had none of. I think it's kind of interesting to fire it up here with some of the cheapies and jam in Jefferson and get to Kamara or Barkley, one of the two, in more lineups or in a featured lineup. I'm testing some of that stuff in the Sims right now. And that's one of the things. We haven't had a ton of like crazy late breaking news that's going to change things, but I know I keep harping on it. I think I have more interest in the cheap pass catchers than what you do because somebody has to be out there, and Russell Wilson has been playing pretty decent football. I mean, we just saw that there was also a news alert earlier that they're looking at making him, the QB of the future, having him be out there again next year. And it makes sense. I mean, he's one loss now at the helm, been playing really good football. And, for all the jokes and everything we had for him in Denver, there is no doubt that this Pittsburgh situation has been better, but he is missing a number one. That definitely hurts what you're looking at for his expectation. But yeah, I think that finding that potential way of stacking him up, running it back with Judy or something from this game, I'm just testing it out here. And yeah, we've got 65 minutes to really figure out exactly where we want to land. But leading into this show, again, I had 0 Russell Wilson. Matthew Stafford was the guy that made the most sense to me and the guy that the Sims tool really was getting me to. Caleb Williams can do some with his rushing floor, but like with Matt Stafford, the nice thing is that there's basically no rushing. So you're stacking him up with one of Puka or Cooper Kupp or both in some scenarios, and neither of them are like nuclear expensive. No, neither are over 8K. They kind of cap each other's upside to some extent, but like I really like Stafford to Nacua, and I think that that's a pretty easy way of absorbing a lot of that upside for the Rams today.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I like playing Stafford, and I like that game environment overall against Buffalo. You could easily see it get up and down. With Caleb, I mean, since Thomas Brown took over, the offense has just been so much, it's more efficient with him. You're taking like easy throws, actually using like motions and stuff. To be honest with you, this just isn't a range I'm really all that interested in.
Okay.
I mean, we'll see where it shakes out. I'm playing 150, so I'll certainly have sprinklings of these guys, but like I mean, I'm very interested to see when you finish testing these Russell Wilson stacks, how they look, because like to me, just off the top of my head, it seems extremely unnecessary to go like full Pittsburgh when you have so many punt running backs. Like what are you getting by playing Russell Wilson to Calvin Austin and Mike Williams with like a Judy run back? Like I don't know. The stack is just going to project so bad. But maybe I'm wrong, and we'll see once everything updates. It's not updated yet. But yeah, I mean, that's my first thing. What's that?
14 seconds ago, Jordan Klein, we can pull up the ownership page. Let's do that before we dive into the Sims here a little bit. Because I'm going to rerun it with our stuff here, because that just it's going to be better than mine. I very much feel
it's not all updated yet. We don't have ownership yet.
Oh, we don't have the ownership side of it. We just got the projection. So I'm putting those into my sheet, and I'll be able to talk a little bit more. I'm curious what you think we have projected at the wide receiver position here for Pittsburgh today.
I legitimately don't know. I mean, I'm going to look.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Welcome to the party, Calvin Austin. He is the highest owned, the highest projected at a grand total of 8 fantasy points. Van Jefferson, 7.7. Mike Williams, 6.8. I'm going to take shots on the Van Jefferson piece for sure at 3,200. I don't think you're looking at any of them in cash. That sounds like a disaster. But Pat Freiermuth, the biggest bump up to 9.3 for a projection. I want to see where the ownership lands along with it. But cheap stack partner, Russell Wilson, Pat Freiermuth, either Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson, and then get all of the goods in all the land and pray to God or whatever, like something like that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that.
I don't think I'm probably going to do it all that much either. I'm just trying to test it out and see how it looks relative. Because again, if you have an entire team of pass catchers under 4K, you have to be interested. It's not like NBA value, because they still have to go for 20 or 15 plus at least to really harm this slate or make a dent in it. But I'm going to rerun it. We'll be set to go here with the Sims here in a second, but let's get to the lower 5K range of quarterback, because Will Levis was showing up ad nauseum in the Sims tool. I think Jameis Winston, it's weird to say this, but the game environment probably just got exponentially worse with George Pickens out of it. Jameis Winston still is going to go out and chuck, so I think Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, hello, hi, how are you? Just fine by me, but I hate to say this, but Aaron Rodgers might be my favorite tournament play in the lower 5Ks. You get Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, and you get a cheap back here in Braylon Allen. We did see Davis mixed in for some of the passing downs. I doubt I'm going to end up getting to any of him to pair alongside Aaron Rodgers, but this is a spot where I just think you could see one of those random New York Jets shootouts that kind of come out from nowhere, or Miami on the other side. Devon Achane feels like a guy who's a little too expensive to even get to on this slate, but Tyreek Hill, I'm certainly at the wide receiver position where it's wide open, going to take some shots. I feel like Aaron Rodgers being a little bit slept on, and he might be fighting for like an NFL job here going forward. Obviously, the Jets aren't very interested in that. How do you feel about the lower 5Ks here today?
I feel weird. It's a setup of like really bad quarterbacks that are in semi-decent matchups. And yeah, you could extend this down to like the players that people are using in the upper 4Ks as well. Like Aaron Rodgers playing Miami. Aaron Rodgers is awful, but it's not a bad matchup. Miami's defense is not very imposing. It's just like, at what point is he going to have a good game? And I don't know the answer to that. Like Derek Carr is playing the Giants. Their defense is virtually non-existent. Will Levis is playing Jacksonville. They legitimately are the worst defense in the NFL. Every quarterback I just named is horrifying. But at what point is the defense on the other side also just as bad where we need to consider these guys? I'm going to let the Sims tool take the wheel with all of these horrific quarterbacks and play them in stacks when it makes sense. Because it's hard for me to come in and talk about guys that just like probably, I don't think any of these guys should be in the NFL at this point. But it's like, what are the alternatives? I don't know.
Yeah. The alternatives are you don't play a quarterback in fantasy today, which is not an option.
Normally I would try to boost guys like Hurts and Allen, but it's the exact opposite. Like all of the terrible quarterbacks are in the best spots. And projections reflect that. Like our highest values are on like Will Levis and I didn't even mention Aiden freaking O'Connell.
What a time to be alive. Yeah, Aiden O'Connell getting Tampa Bay on the other side of this one. I think it's at least interesting. He looked pretty decent, I thought, up against the Chiefs. I watched that whole second half. It was interesting, to say the least. Everybody enjoy their Black Friday shopping? It was enjoyable if you were a Raiders fan until it wasn't at the end of that game, for sure. But Brock Bowers is the dude. Brock Bowers is going to be extremely popular. You have a pretty easy opportunity to double him with Jacoby Myers. Mike Evans is going to be popular. Like, that's a game environment that I don't know what to make of. I just know that the volume is coming in like crazy on Brock Bowers, and it should be. He is an absolute dude. So Aiden O'Connell and Brock Bowers together taking up just over 10K of salary. I'm okay with that on today's slate. Although if you told me Aiden O'Connell went out and put up a goose egg, I wouldn't be shocked either. At least he's sitting like 7-8%. When we get to this Will Levis piece, man, we could see him in small field upwards of 12-15%. And Jacksonville is terrible, horrible, no good, very bad. They have allowed for quarterback after quarterback to smash on slates. But how do you feel about him specifically? Because I think as I rerun everything in the Sims, I know how much I was getting yesterday. I'm curious how much you're getting right now.
Yeah, a fair amount. And I'm not going to lie to you, like, quarterback's just not a position I have very big stands on right now. Like, my favorite is Darnold. He's the only person I like actively am trying to play. Everyone else, it's just pretty average. And I'm with you on like the Levis stuff. Like, he's awful. He has been playing better recently, but he's still taking sacks. He's still causing turnovers. That's not always necessarily a bad thing for DFS. But I mean, like, some of these guys could get benched in game. You wouldn't be surprised by that. So, I mean, when they come up in my tournament pool, in my 150 set, I'm not going to actively depress it. But I mean, by far my favorite guy to play is Darnold.
Yeah, Darnold's about the only quarterback that, and it's Sam Darnold. It's my Minnesota Vikings. I have uncertainty about them as a franchise in my life. So there's always that. But at the same time, he's the only quarterback that I feel like, the ownership is probably even a little bit lower than it should be. I think he should be your cash game quarterback today in pretty much all formats. No questions asked. But if we had to rank the next grouping of them, I like Baker Mayfield a lot for tournaments. Just to recap, I didn't probably send that one home enough. I like the Mike Evans piece for sure. I think that is good chalk on today's slate and somebody you should definitely be considering for all formats. And then Geno Smith. I feel better about Geno Smith being sub 6K. And with how good of a play Charbonnet is, if you can stack him with one of JSN, DK Metcalf, maybe you get all of the touchdowns and absorb all of it there. But I repeat, Arizona's defense has impressed me the last few weeks. They've played a lot better than anybody ever could have anticipated with those pieces. So shout out to all of them. And lastly, of course, Aaron Rodgers, because I hate myself, but there we are. Who are your three favorites for tournaments today, Matt?
Darnold, Mayfield, and Stafford. That's how I would rank them.
Yep. Stafford's 4 for me for sure. So I'm right there with you. I'm going to be pretty flat at quarterback. I think that's a good way to play it. I also think, this kind of reminds me of Portfolio EV to some extent, because you're trying to get a lot of volume down. You're trying to get 150 and build out a portfolio. Well, let's build actual portfolios, shall we, people? If you head over to oddshopper.com and you check out Portfolio EV right now, we've got an awesome deal going on right now, and it's directly behind my head and on your screen right now. Use code CYBERWEEK. It is valid through the end of today. Yes, CYBERWEEK. That is your promo code. Get your first month of Portfolio EV 70% off. You can upload bets directly. The DraftKings one works like a charm. You're able to upload 20 bets immediately, put them in seconds. It is incredible to watch it perform. And if you guys haven't followed my friend Greg Ehrenberg, who I do NBA, LBL every single Monday through Friday with, and then also Sundays, I know that he ends up doing the lineup building show that's about 3 hours ago, which is awesome as well. You have an opportunity to follow his thread and him keeping track of all of his NBA bets for Portfolio EV. He's nearly 5x his money already, less than 40 days into that challenge, less than 50 days into that challenge it is. So check out Portfolio EV right now, 70% off, an incredible deal. Cyber Week gets you that 70% off. And Jordan Klein, throw that into the chat. Oh, he already did. Look at that. Jordan Klein, the best producer in the game, named Jordan Klein. I don't think it's remotely close, but Portfolio EV, the best in market-based betting for sure. Alrighty, to the running back position, because this is about to get a little bit freaking naughty because there's some ownership coming in on some dudes. And on the expensive end, it is Alvin Kamara, 44% ownership. It's not exactly non-played here at Saquon Barkley, but 19% for him at 9K. That's a hefty price to pay. And Devon Achane, 8,200, kind of smack dab in the middle, sub 10%. I love Devon Achane. I'm still not going to get to him in some crazy capacity. Although, with Raheem Mostert out, there's at least, an opportunity for him to play every single third down as well. Jalen Wright coming in for a mix of pace back from time to time or give him a breather. But I love Alvin Kamara. Everybody else does too. We expect dump after dump off. Do you think Kendre Miller being back affects him in any way? Because, you're still getting, I think, just about the same volume no matter what.
I'm not sure. I think that was mainly a Dennis Allen thing, why they weren't using him. But this is a lost season. I don't really know what your incentive is to run Kamara into the ground nonstop. They re-signed him. So based on that, hypothetically, is part of your future plans. Why not get a look at the guy you drafted semi-high? I think there's some downside risk with Kamara. I don't really know what it would take for him to be a bad play on this slate, though, because he's projected so well. Even if you see him dinged a little bit by Kendre Miller, he's still probably going to project among the best players on the slate entirely. Like, he is our best value rating among the expensive players by far. So I still think he's fine, even though I do think there is some downside with him. Maybe if you want to play into that downside, you just bump Achane a little bit, Barkley a little bit, maybe like Bijan. But yeah, he's a great play.
I think if it were week 17, I'd have more concerns. But at week 14, I still think you got to assume they're playing it pretty straight up. As you said,
Maybe,
though,
I
think
know,
that's a really good. I think that's a really good take for the most part. I think also look at the division. The division is dog doo-doo. Atlanta 6-6 there, just running away here. Tampa Bay 6-6. There's still an opportunity where they string some wins together at the end of the season. I'm not saying it's likely by any means, but there's at least a chance that this is a spot that they're just going to continue to play straight up until they're eliminated from the division. 2 games back. There's a lot of time still left.
A lot of time to lose.
See, negative Nancy. That's what I'm getting at. That's. I look at the glass half full. You look at the glass as empty entirely.
I look at the current odds to win that division, and they're not in favor of New Orleans. Another just is what it is, Eric. I'm sorry that you think it's all negative.
No, I love you. It's what's good.
I'm telling you right now, man, they're not making the playoffs. I'm sorry if you become a New Orleans fan.
It's kind of like how my marriage works out so well, because I get made fun of all the time, just like I do in YouTube chat. Keeps me humble and grounded. To other parts of running back here, we've got ourselves in an interesting spot with Bijan Robinson, at least to consider, I suppose. James Cook, I heard the very tail end of that last show, and I know that was a Ben Raza special, the Megamind genius play of the day. Kyren Williams, where to get it? Where to get it? That's the Williams and Williams jokes. There's 7,300 for him there. I'm not in love with anything here, even from a tournament perspective. I gave James Cook a little bit of a boost here now as I'm working through my lineups. I'm very curious to see what I see at the very end of this, but do you have anything here in the 7K range? Because I currently don't.
The 7K range is tough. I think, right for tournaments, if you want to take like a massive stand, you could play like Bijan, James Cook, or Kyren, and then play a lot of chalk around it because you're sacrificing a lot. If you go down, like this is just a 1v1 swap. If you go down from like Kamara to James Cook, you're giving up 10 points in projection. 10. That's an enormous gap. So I think there's almost no way you do this unless you're playing chalk all around these players. And to poke holes in it, you basically have some form of a timeshare or a significantly worse either role or game environment for every one of these players. Kyren, he's difficult when everyone's healthy. You see more of the red zone opportunities go to Kupp, go to Nakua. James Cook is in a timeshare with Ray Davis. It's not, like 50-50 by any means, but Kamara has very little competition depending on what you think of Kendre. And Bijan against Minnesota, this is the place I would make a pivot if you wanted to take one. We've seen them in games that are competitive or when they trail, especially Bijan will handle a lot more snaps than Algier. So he at least has that in his range of outcomes. It's not the most likely, But I think if you're pivoting off of like a Kamara in this range, I would save the 500 and play like a Bijan who's had some monster games, especially when they're playing from behind.
To the 6K range where James Conner, Bucky Irving, both of them pulling nearly 10% ownership. Aaron Jones, our boy, 6,500. We're in, yes?
Where are we? We're always in, man. Are we not?
I need to get even on Aaron Jones this season. I need to get even. He only goes nuts on showdown slates. He hates me. He hates me, Matt. But anyway, we got Chuba Hubbard as well. 1%, because you got Brooks back. And, well, Philadelphia's defense has been incredible. And then Najee Harris, who's pulling 11% ownership. I'm a little bit interested now. I wasn't really before, but Pittsburgh's going to try to establish the run. Again, Arthur Smith at the helm calling plays, and Najee's looked better and better. I've been of the mind of playing more Jaylen Warren than him in these spots, but again, Pittsburgh, no George Pickens. You just try to go to it no matter what. So it's a tough thing at 11%. I'm surprised to see him pulling this much ownership in our stuff. I think as you go to small field, he'll definitely come down, because we're going to get into the cheapies that really matter on this slate. But lower sixes for me, or the sixes in general, Aaron Jones, Bucky Irving, James Conner, kind of in a little bit on all of them, but not over 15% on a single one of them. How about you?
No, me either. And I think largely it's just because we have 3 studs that are in the 5K range. Like, I'm not sure why you'd be playing like Pollard coming in at 11% and our current run is very surprising. Connor at 10%, extremely surprising. Najee, I could see it now given Pittsburgh's current outlook. And Bucky, I mean, he's probably the best play, but he's coming off an injury and it's still a timeshare. So it's even tricky to play him. My preference is just take the non-timeshare backs in the 5K range. So this is going to be a range just entirely that I'm underexposed to because you have better roles, sometimes better game environments at cheaper prices that allow you to play other studs in your lineups at cheaper price tags down here. Like I would just infinitely rather play the Garendo range than any of these guys.
Just got done running all my stuff. Hey, Matt.
Did you get some Calvin Austin?
Oh, the amount of Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson I have could choke a donkey. That's Fat Bastard from what movie? Don't even answer that. You don't know, so it's okay.
Okay,
it's okay. Yeah, don't. We don't need to play that game today. We've got ourselves Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin. I've got him over 30% in my stuff. The Van Jefferson piece makes all the sense in all the land. I'm also going to give Mike Williams a little bit of a boost at 4% in my first run. I'm going to get to around 8% of him here as well. I'm sorry to break it to you, Matt. It's kind of an important part of the slate.
Mike Williams?
Oh, no. Just the cheap wide receivers on Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah, it is. My sim hasn't run yet. And fully willing to admit when I don't have a great feel on a position and where it's going to go. When that happens, I think leaning into some uncertainty does make some sense, especially when you're playing it against ownership. When you're playing it into ownership, it's a different conversation. But yeah, I mean, this is late news. I don't think a lot of people are going to be like heavily invested in Pittsburgh. I'm still kind of debating what I want to do with it because this is a personal bias, but man, these receivers all stink.
The Calvin Austin one I feel the least comfortable with. Like getting to 30% of him sounds painful. It's weird to say I feel better about Van Jefferson because I repeat, it's Van Jefferson. But oh man, he had the 42 snaps. I just keep going back to the workload and it's so volatile. But when volatility is sub 4K, the risk isn't built into like them failing. It's kind of like you need to make sure that the guys that you are going to be paying up for don't fail. And that's where I feel more comfortable getting to these guys. I'm getting to way more of my guy, Justin Jefferson, getting to way more of the Nakua Cup side of things. And so it's just basically a chain effect where, yeah, obviously you get to the cheaper pieces. You have salary to burn. You have salary to spend. You still need that spot to do something to some extent, but like getting 10 and then getting 35 from Justin Jefferson, there's just so many ways for this to work out. And it's a volume thing. They have to have somebody out on the field. They don't have to throw the football. Arthur Smith has made that known at times in his career, specifically Atlanta. But yeah, this is a tough one because Russell Wilson's been playing so well that I have to take shots on this. And now I'm apparently taking a lot of shots on it, Matt.
I'm still waiting to see, man. I don't know, man. We'll find out, I guess. If anything, I'm going to be bringing it down, not up.
Yep. I'm currently in the process of trying to make sure that I bring it down to like a reasonable extent, but at the same time, man, we're out here living the life, talking about Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin on a beautiful Sunday morning. Brandon Wagner, $10. Thoughts on triple stack? Aiden with Tucker, Myers, Bowers with Evans bring back. Yeah, that's obviously a lot into the game environment. I don't think the Sims have really like shown out a lot of QB +3 this week. It's been a lot of QB1, QB2, very few run backs as well. And I think that actually makes sense for this specific week. I'm not finding it all that necessary to find the bringbacks. I mean, that's kind of been the theme of the entire year for me, is like the way I used to think about DFS, and then the way that you can actually get leverage through a Sims tool telling you what the best lineups are, just based on sharp projections, which we definitely have. I'm not really getting to any QB3 whatsoever. So you're very invested in that early environment. You're very invested in that entire game going nuts. You better be getting to some expensive pieces around it. But Matt, do you have any QB3 whatsoever as you're looking at your lineups as you're building? Hello? Oh, mute. You're on mute. Mute.
Oh, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
don't anticipate having a lot. You got to get me quicker on those, man.
It's okay. I apologize. I'm in the middle of running everything, and everything has changed within me. Something is not the same. I'm playing by the rules of Russell Wilson's game.
Good
that
luck.
was a thematic circle, by the way, and it went over your head, but that's okay. What doesn't go over my head whatsoever is how popular these running backs are down in the 5K and one in the 4K range for sure. How do we feel about Braylon Allen and Isaac Garundo today?
Awesome. I think they're two of the best plays in the slate.
Is there anything else that we really need to say about it other than Isaac Garundo? Who else is behind them? Because if we were to have any specialty on this show relative to anybody else in the industry, it is the fact that you know where everybody's from and know like the 48th string running back on the practice squad. Kyle Juszczyk, we know that he's one of the best fullbacks in football, constantly Pro Bowl, wife's really hot. And then you've got, I don't know who P. Taylor Jr. is, but maybe you could expand. Who is behind Isaac Garundo today?
Who did you say?
There's this P. Taylor character, and then
Patrick
there's
Taylor. He went to
and
Memphis.
then Keyshawn Vaughn I'm familiar with from Tampa, but I don't know where he went to college or anything.
He went to Vanderbilt.
Of course he did. Why wouldn't he? Very smart man.
Very smart man. Play some football. Yeah. Patrick Taylor went to Memphis. He was on the same team as Kenneth Gainwell. He got hurt in like the second week of the season. He actually played ahead of Gainwell. Gainwell is a former receiver who got moved to running back because of his injury. I believe Patrick Taylor broke his foot that year. And he's been bouncing around the NFL. He's been on practice squads. He was in the Packers for a while. He's actually been pretty good in the preseason, but I don't think they really think all that much of him. They were going out and signing backs left and right this week. Abanaconda's in the backfield now, former Jets great, who flamed out after he couldn't get on the field. I think they're just going to fully give Garundo the role unless he does something stupid and fumbles. But man, he's the one they actually invested in. At this point in their season, why not see what he has? He's also like by far the most explosive player in this offense right now. His size adjusted speed, so he's a big back, like over 220 pounds, ran one of the best 40-yard dashes we've ever seen. Like his size adjusted speed is in like the Calvin Johnson range. Like this guy has better athleticism at his size than Derrick Henry. Unbelievable stuff for him. He just hasn't always been like a full-time running back. He was on a very crowded Wisconsin depth chart, like with Jonathan Taylor and stuff. So him not playing there does make sense. Then when he got to Louisville, just an absolute wagon, plays on special teams as a guy that'll handle like kickoff returns, punt returns. It'll be fun to see what he has, but I think this is a dynamic weapon that they can actually use in a lot of different creative ways. And I don't think you see as much Patrick Taylor today.
Okay, then I like that a lot more than I thought I was going to. Again, this is the good stuff. This is the Matt Kajeski stuff that I absolutely salivate for. I probably should have used a different word than salivate, but Isaac Garundo, that is the kind of breakdown that you can only really get from Matt. And there's really nothing else to add other than Isaac Guerendo. He's now, he was already in 36% of my lineups that I'm looking at. Going to give him a little tiny bit of a boost to give myself a little bit more here. Alvin Kamara, I've trimmed down to around 40%. I feel pretty comfortable just being at the field on Alvin Kamara based on all of the different factors. Again, I think it's too early to say they're going to pack it in, but got to try to move the football still. And, he's active, he's playing, and Alvin Kamara, your best weapon for sure. Maybe they do try to limit him to some capacity here, but Braylon Allen, how do we feel about this Davis character being mixed in here in the passing game? I'm not overly concerned about it. We're still talking about a 5K running back who projects for over half the workload and almost all of the carries. Braylon Allen also confirmed a Wisconsin wagon. Look at that. I'm bringing in the college game.
There's a lot of Wisconsin backs we're talking about. Guerendo, Braylon Allen. But yeah, with Allen, I don't really think you see a lot of Isaiah Davis. I'm not really sure why you would. And Braylon Allen's a fine pass catcher. He's not like Kamara or anything, but he can certainly give you work on third downs. We've seen him used on third downs already this year. And he's just been hyper efficient when given the opportunities. It's just unfortunate for him that he has to play in a backfield that also has Breece Hall. But now, even if they're trailing, I don't think he's really coming off the field, which is why, to bring this back to the 6K range, playing Braylon, playing Guerendo, playing Charbonnet is why I don't really think you need to play a lot of those 6K guys.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because Zach Charbonnet, 4,800. Let's round this out before we get to maybe some tournament options within this range, but I have 100% Zach Charbonnet. I don't know what to do to trim him. The Sims tool put me at 90-something% right away, and I absolutely love it. We've seen massive workloads in the 2 weeks without Kenneth Walker so far this season. There is nobody that they want behind him out on the field whatsoever. And it's Arizona where, yes, we have seen them play much better defensively, but the workload, 18 carries, 14 carries against Miami and New England respectively, no Kenneth Walker, and absolute smashes. He is sub 5K. He makes everything work. He's the first guy in cash. He's the last guy out in tournaments. What are we doing here with Zach Charbonnet other than just jam?
Yeah, the only difference between Charbonnet and the other two backs that are cheap is that we know he's going to play every single snap. With the other ones, there's still a little bit of guesswork. We think it's going to happen, but we're not sure. We've seen Walker miss a lot of games, and we have seen Charbonnet play every snap in all of those contests. I don't think this is a bad matchup at all. If you remove the Bears game from the Arizona Cardinals schedule, they're like 28th in defensive efficiency. So they have played better. Like my expectation was they would be 32nd or 31st. So yeah, they're a little better than that, but any strong defensive metrics they have are heavily swayed by playing the Bears.
Yep, for sure. Because heavily by playing the Bears. That's funny. Well, the Bears
that
under
was a Waldron Bears
regime.
game.
That was exactly that. There we go. Not the Brown game, but the Waldron game. Tournament plays within this range. Again, there's nobody that looks remotely close to those three for me on this slate. I guess my question for you is, would you play all three of them in cash based on your Alvin Kamara take as well? Would Guerendo, Allen, and Charbonnet be the trio you'd be looking for in cash?
I'm not playing cash, thankfully, because this is a really hard debate, especially now that we've had some other stuff open up late. I still think you're trying to get Kamara in. It's my instinct, but I'm very happy to not make that decision today.
Of course, I'm playing cash because why wouldn't I be? Oh,
you're playing Kamara, right?
No,
you're not playing Kamara.
I decided no.
I don't think. I think you could very easily go and play the three cheap guys.
This is the hill I'm going to die on. I'm going to die on the Justin Jefferson hill today. I'm going to absolutely die on it. This is the most I've had of any Minnesota Viking all season long by far. I'm expecting the absolute worst. Like Justin Jefferson, sub 8K against Atlanta at 16% ownership. I am triple the field and I'm going to play him in cash. And I'm just shocked to see a sub 8K Justin Jefferson on a slate with three cheap running backs getting no attention, really.
He's cost me a lot of money this year. He's had a fine season, but compared to your expectations, my expectations, I think what everyone expected, he's not lived up to them this year.
I would agree with that.
And I called him the best receiver in the NFL. He's eclipsed double-digit targets once. And it needs to be said, like nobody gets extra attention like Justin Jefferson. Like people love to say that about Jamar Chase, even though it's not true. Jefferson routinely gets extra coverages dedicated his way. So some of it makes some sense, but yeah, I mean, like 14 targets once, nothing else above 10. I mean, it's a little surprising.
It's kind of insane, actually.
I mean, they have good pass catchers. Like Addison's fine, Hawkinson's back. So it's not like the early career Justin Jefferson, his first couple of years where they had zero around him. So I mean,
it's true.
I'm with you though. Like I keep playing him. He's one of my highest owned receivers today. It's just, in the back of your mind that he is the most talented receiver in the NFL. And if he had 14 targets, no one would be surprised. So when he's not owned like today, I like playing into that.
I do too. He's just going to be in everything that I do. And I have respect for Mike Hughes for what it's worth. And we kind of expect him to be on the field more and more and more. But yeah, he hasn't played since week 10, I believe. And I don't know what to make of his health. I don't know all the ins and outs of that. All I know is that I look at the projections that we have on Jefferson, and I look at the context of the slate where you get the cheap running backs, and one guy in particular in Charbonnet who's just like carved into all of my lineups. And that gives me opportunities to go to wide receiver and just say, give me the best play. And Justin Jefferson feels like the best play there. But let's round out running back. Amir Abdullah, somebody that if you were to get to a couple shares of, I don't completely hate the idea. You got a popular Aiden O'Connell, popular Brock Bowers, popular Jacoby Myers. Why not a little bit of Amir Abdullah, who ended up being not a bell cow back, but kind of, with the absence of some of these other pieces. I guess it's just a question of like, with Alexander Mattison out again here, are there looks that they give to anybody else here too? Because Amir Abdullah, we know who he is at this point in time, and Zamir White has been sent to the Shadow Realm. He's out as well. McCormick was okay. Saw 12 carries there against Kansas City. Looked pretty okay in that spot. I'd feel better clicking on Abdullah, though, between the two of them and the passing game volume that can come in from Amir Abdullah. I think that's what I'm the most interested in, is some dump-offs and come from behind territory. But is there anything else that we're looking? Because the word is not pivot. The word is accessory item. Like I'm playing them alongside Charbonnet and Garundo and Allen. But those three, they're my three highest owned running backs here at the moment.
I think this is the smallest running back pool I've ever trotted out in 150.
Me too.
It's like 9 guys.
Yeah, I had to really force it to get to like any James Conner, any Bucky Irving. I think it's worth it to get to a little bit of them there. I'm surprised by the Najee Harris ownership. I'm really surprised by the Tony Pollard ownership, although it's Jacksonville. I think that that's probably warranted if we're being honest. And then Aaron Jones, I have to play or I'd cry myself to sleep if he went nuts. So there's just that. That's more of just like a protecting my sanity, which is probably already gone. I think most people would argue that, but I am with you. This is a very condensed running back pool for me.
And to bring it back to the Raiders guys, I just think they're very unnecessary in a timeshare when you have such good plays and numerous options. Garendo, Charbonnet. You could play 2 of the 3. You don't have to play them all, but I don't think you're doing that to jam in a Raiders back.
No, you're not going out of your way to do that. You're going to play Charbonnet there, and you're also going to find if you're using the Sims tool that it is extremely, extremely valuable to be able to get to some of the expensive wide receivers alongside some of these cheap running backs. And the way that you can get that for free right now, the Sims tool that is checking out one of our 11 partner sites that we're going to put up on the screen right now by Jordan Klein. Check out Pick'em on the left. Check out Sportsbooks on the right. Check out Rebet, a sweepstakes book available in 46 of 50 states. Down at the bottom, 11 different sites that can give you access to the Sims tool for free. Now, here's how it works. You simply sign up with one of these partners that you have not yet signed up at yet. You have Pick'em on the left. Again, you have an opportunity at multiple states, no matter where you are, to be able to get exposure to the Sims tool for free. You simply sign up with these 4 simple steps on the next screen. You basically are sending in your first ever settled bet and the screenshot of your welcome email. Those 2, when you email support@stokastic.com, will hook you up with the Sims tool in the NFL or the NBA for 1 month, completely free. No questions asked. Plus, there's awesome sign-up deals going on at all these sites, whether it's Bet 5, get $50 over at DraftKings Pick 6. That's a pretty easy deal to get 10x your money on $5 investment. Pretty easy if you ask me. You got Bet365, damn good fine. I'll suck it to you one more time where you can sign up at any one of those states and you get an opportunity to bet 5, get 150 back from them. Awesome deals across the industry right now, whether it's Pick'em or in the sportsbook land. Check out all of those below and get the Sims tool for free. While you're at it, sign up in the link in chat there or in the video description box below. It's only if you're 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Alrighty, friends, to the wide receiver position where things look way different than they did before the ridiculous George Pickens deal. So here we are, but let's start in the expensive end like we always do and work ourselves down. I've already gone on my Justin Jefferson diatribe. I'm not sure what else you want me to add other than I absolutely love it. I want it. I want all of these players here. Puka Nacua, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. If we have unlimited salary, give me all of the 7K range. AJ Brown not really getting there, which kind of freaks me out, but Devonta Smith there. Oh, it is what it is. But how are we feeling about the 7K wide receiver room?
Very good. I mean, I love Jefferson. We talked about him, so not really too much to belabor, but he's my favorite one. He's down in price after a lackluster season, so I'm just going to play into that. Otherwise, I mean, you mentioned a lot of really good plays. Nacua, he's been awesome since their return from injury. Looks like he's moved slightly ahead of Kupp in the target pecking order for this team. He's highly involved around the red zone. He gets these gadget plays. Buffalo's not a tough matchup, but they're not an easy one either. I just view it as kind of neutral. Evans is in like, I don't know, the spot of the year without Godwin. Targets hyper condensed, non-existent Vegas secondary. They're extremely competitive in the playoff race. Evans has incentives on the line. Like he's chasing historic numbers. He needs like what, 500 yards or something to reach 1,000 for like the 19th consecutive season. He's absolutely chasing that. I mean, Evans is an absolute awesome play on this slate too. This is a great range.
Great range. Tyreek Hill, we haven't seen that nuclear upside. It's there still. It's very much there. This offense is just completely different with Tua. They've spread it around. Jonnu Smith has emerged. You saw Jalen Waddle has a pulse, so congratulations to him for re-emerging. But I love Tyreek Hill as well. It's just Justin Jefferson against Atlanta in this specific spot. I think 100 times out of 100, I'm happy to burn half my lineups if this goes poorly. But this is the first time that I've really played Justin Jefferson all year, and I'm going to make it count. Hopefully here. 7K range just looks awesome. There's not a lot to belabor. Mike Evans, probably your cash option as well. Again, I like Justin Jefferson for cash. I'm not really sure why it's not pulling more attention with the value that we have at the running back position. But Drake London on the opposite side of that game, I do get nervous because he does it with volume, and you're looking for 9-10 catches in a game that just kind of is methodically moving down the line. It's kind of what I'm hoping Justin Jefferson does for the Minnesota Vikings. And so the two of them together, I'm not doing anything specific to say, hey, if I were hand building, I would definitely find ways to maybe trim the ownership of the two of them together. But it's the same game environment. And as I said before, like I don't have as many run backs this week, it would appear in the Sims tool, and I'm just fine with it. But I think the Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson thing just is so interesting this week. You get out in New York, you get into Miami, better weather, obviously. Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, not what you're looking for entirely, but they're now a lot cheaper than the 7K tags we were paying for them. 6,600 and 6,700 looks really, really good. I brought it up before. I think Aaron Rodgers is a nice tournament target. I want to be getting at least one, maybe both in a lot of those lineups and playing them in the 6K range. It is very easy to build around them with the running back. I like these lineups that I'm looking at that have both of them for sure, as I sorted that out. Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, we can say the exact same thing about them that I just said about the Jets tandem. And Malik Neighbors, if he's actually a full go and he ends up being like 1%, 2% because we're all nervous about that, and he just smashes, it wouldn't shock me. I'm not going to completely remove him from my pool, but I think the 6K range is another awesome tournament range, Matt.
Yeah, I think for tournaments, it's great. London, I agree with you, is probably your best play. If you're falling in this range for cash or something low risk, he's probably the guy you just click. It is volume based, but that doesn't really project to drop anytime soon. They're just throwing the ball incessantly with Kirk. They don't have a defense that can stop anybody. This game has a lot of shootout appeal, and we already talked about liking the Minnesota side. So London, I think, stands out first and foremost. I have less interest in the Jets receivers than you do. I do not believe in Aaron Rodgers, and the fact that there's two of them, I think, is a little bit of cannibalism going on between the two. Seattle's tricky. I've been playing them a lot. Their line is atrocious, but fortunately, they're facing Arizona, whose pass rush is among the worst in the NFL. I could see the merits to Smith and Jigba or Metcalf. I'm not playing a large percentage of them in my portfolio. Same thing with Geno. But I do think for tournaments, there are players you could make stands with. And I'm a little surprised like DJ Moore doesn't project better because Caleb projects pretty well. I guess a lot of that is going to Keenan, who's a better value than DJ Moore, but maybe you could just use that as a leverage pivot. So I'm like a little interested in most of these players for tournaments outside of the Jets guys, and I think Drake is just the best play in the range.
Yep, I'm with you. Everything you said, perfectly said. To the 5K range we go, where Khalil Shakira always exists. Wild, wild stuff. Oh, SMU got in. Did you see that news? SMU got in.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
It.
Thank God, right?
I mean, I don't really have strong opinions on this. As long as they play the games, I don't care who they put in Montana State for all I care. The only worry now is like everyone in the SEC that's pissed has legitimate like qualms with this. Like, what incentive do they have to continue scheduling difficult? So that's what I worry about. Like non-con already kind of stinks for college football. You don't have a lot of elite matchups, and you might see fewer because of stuff like this.
Yeah. I want the best teams in there, and it's weird to get punished for having to play a conference championship game. So that just made me happy. I got the warm fuzzies.
I agree with you. I agree with that too.
Yeah.
They were going to lose. Either you devalue the conference championship or you devalue strength of schedule.
Yep. Thank you for setting a good precedent, though. The first year of a 12-team playoff, that's all I cared about, was just having a good precedent set rather than just hey, Alabama is going to garner attention and money and yada, yada, yada. Give me SMU. Are they playing Texas, by the way? I didn't see who
they were playing Penn State.
Okay, awesome. So that was the other thing. I thought they were going to maybe just do like the in-state rivalry thing. I thought that'd be a little bit unfair to Texas, but anyway, that's beside the point. Let's get back.
At the end of the day, I don't care who plays who. As long as they play games, like I'll be watching. Yeah, and we'll be breaking it down for DFS and projecting it. That's Ben Raza, Matt Kajeski breaking it down next Saturday. If you guys are not checking out the college football show, you're just kind of doing it wrong. Plus college football DFS, a lot more money in it year after year after year. And I don't think that's slowing down anytime soon. So be checking that out. Matt, just an absolute goat of the college streets. He's not too bad in these NFL streets, if you ask me either. But Jerry Jeudy, he's looking a lot better because Jameis Winston likes to throw. You got yourself some interesting spots here in the mid 5K range. And I'm curious what you think about Jacoby Myers here, because we've got him projected right around 18.5%. That becomes the most popular wide receiver on the entire slate here. And you got Brock Bowers, the most popular tight end on the slate here at 6,500 as well. These guys aren't exactly free. It's Aiden O'Connell throwing them the football. It's Tampa Bay, which, is not like a complete zero on the defensive end, but I mean, this is just kind of a lot of ownership to be looking at for Jacoby Myers. You can certainly make him cash viable, but I kind of prefer Jeudy straight up in just about any capacity. And now with some of these cheap wide receivers that the Sims like, I'm definitely going to be kind of planting my flag on the Jerry Jeudy side of things. Trimming Jacoby Myers doesn't feel great by any means, but how are you feeling about the mid fives? Because again, this is another spot where there are some tournament guys to roll out. Keenan Allen pulling nearly 10% ownership. Mr. Brown calling the plays, looking a lot better the last couple of weeks. Probably should have beat Detroit. Where are you kind of landing in your lineups, Matt? I agree with you, trying to keep Jacoby Myers in check. I think he's very clearly behind Bowers for an offense that we don't really expect a lot of passing wise. I'm with you on Jeudy. Anytime you remove someone from this Cleveland offense, like Tillman's out, you have such awesome opportunity shares for these players, even in a tough matchup against Pittsburgh. And it is going to be tough. This is probably the biggest mismatch, D-line versus O-line this week. Pittsburgh has Highsmith back. I hope Winston doesn't die halfway through the game. If he doesn't, then you see this opportunity, but they're going to be in trouble from that pass rush. Ridley's in this range with Levis playing a little better. Jacksonville on the other side. I think he makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, I don't have a ton of interest in like the Bears guys, the middle of this range outside of Addison. He kind of came along with my Sam Darnold ownership. But you get Juwan Jennings, the wide receiver 1 for San Francisco at 5,200. He projects extremely well. And there's just nothing to really suggest that Debo is returning to the old Debo we knew. He's been battling some injuries, and I don't know if that's the reason his efficiency has declined. But Jennings is far more involved at this point. It's actually wild to see. So I would rather play Jennings straight up than a lot of players in this range, and he's just cheaper.
I'm with you. You brought up Jennings, you said?
Yes, he was the last one I talked about.
Yeah, Eagle. I love the Jennings piece. It's hard for me to get away from him here too. Man, the amount of Garundo, that fact that Matt just posted to us too over on X. I mean, that is just wild. Because DK Metcalf, we know what he looks like. Isaac Garundo, if he's going to be comped in the same way, that is kind of absurd stuff for sure. But working through the rest of wide receiver, now we go to the sub 5K realm. Oh boy. Lots of tournament shots. Nothing I think that needs to be a priority. I guess at flat 5K, Rome Odunze, if you want to fire up some Chicago, Caleb Williams pulling some popularity, I think it's justified. Elijah Moore, I feel the best about. Westbrook-Ikhine, I know the ownership isn't there. I promise you. The ownership will be there. It has artificially been jammed. This is like folklore, the run that Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is on right now, and he continues to be overowned relative to projections. You can't keep it in check. And yeah, he's been great there, and this is the best spot going up against Jacksonville. But I can't get to – I mean, he's right now 4.5% ownership. I would be floored if he wasn't close to like 7, 8, 9, because people love to click on those buttons. That is for sure. But the mid-5s, you got Ricky Pearsall, people kind of forgetting about him potentially there in that offense. You got Darius Slayton. If Malik Neighbors is somehow limited – I'm going to kick myself if I don't have a Darius Slayton in my pool. And currently showing up with 1.5% ownership, I would give him a little bit of a boost. If you're going to go in and boost somebody at the wide receiver, like think about what could break his way. If Neighbors plays like less than 20, 30% of snaps, just gets out there for a game check, Darius Slayton has benefited so much with Malik Neighbors off the field. Looking at the Seattle game that they went on the run and inexplicably won. You saw some volume, 11 targets against Seattle and Cincinnati, respectively, with no Malik Neighbors out there. I think he's probably the one guy in the 4K range that I had to boost to get any of, but is there anything you like here in the 4K range?
There's nothing I'm super excited about. I think there's some pivots that you could get to that you already mentioned. You kind of broke down the Slayton angle. I don't love it. It's entirely dependent on Neighbors.
Yep.
Ray McLeod is my favorite, just as another piece of that Minnesota-Atlanta game. He's pretty involved as well. But that's about it. Everyone else is very dusty. The only other player that like piques my interest a little bit is Parker Washington, playing a lot of the slot role for Jacksonville. He's been very involved since we lost Kirk and Gabe Davis. So he is somewhat interesting, but I just am not ever excited about pass catchers for Mac Jones.
Yeah, because it's Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones. And get Mac Jones up off the low because Mac Jones about to blow. Sub 4K, we have a couple of options. They're all wearing Pittsburgh Steelers jerseys. Van Jefferson, do we even want to go over that anymore? Because, hey, I'm letting it roll. Van Jefferson season. Let's party.
Van Jefferson season in 2024. Who would have thought?
Not me. Not you. Not us.
Not me.
No. I'm pretty flat across wide receiver, except for Justin Jefferson. Hi, how are you this fine day?
I am playing a lot of Jefferson. My most owned receiver is Juwan Jennings, though. Or are you talking Van Jefferson? I went up to my mind defaulted to Justin Jefferson.
I was saying Justin Jefferson, but I like Juwan Jennings too. I'm hoping both JJs smash souls today. That would be cool.
Yeah, me too, man.
All right. Everybody hit that like button. Matt and I are rocking. We're rolling as we head to tight end, my friends. It is a beautiful time to be alive when Brock Bowers is pulling the most ownership on the slate at the most expensive tight end position. Who would have thunk that we would be paying up to $6,500 and $6,100 for Brock Bowers and Trey McBride in the year of our Lord 2024 when punting tight end had become all the rage? But they deserve it. They deserve the tags. Trey McBride, my favorite piece of that Arizona-Seattle game, not named Zach Charbonnet. Cade Otton, TJ Hawkinson pulling some ownership. Let's just open up the floor. Where are you landing the most in your lineups, my friend?
Landing the most at McBride and Bowers by a pretty wide margin.
Same.
And I think that makes sense. They're basically just wide receivers that have the tight end designation. Bowers is literally breaking records at the tight end position. And you can get him at 6,500. Like, he's in the same price range as like some pretty dusty players at wide receiver. It's actually very surprising to see. Like, same price range as like a Drake London, same price range as like Smith and Jigba. Garrett Wilson, he's a little cheaper than Adams. He's cheaper than, projects like right on par or better than those players, like pretty significantly. McBride is about the same. I mean, if they were wide receivers, I think these would be some of the most owned players in the slate still. And you get the luxury of playing them at tight end. These are two awesome plays. I'm prioritizing them. It's easy to get them because of the slate construction and the cheap running backs. I don't really see, outside of just pivoting for the sake of leverage, I don't see a lot of reason to get away from McBride and Bowers. And someday McBride will score a touchdown, I can promise you.
One day, my friends. If I have to hear it on every telecast, every single time, though, I'm already not okay, Matt. And they then do that to me on a day-to-day basis. Why do we have to bring up the same point 48 times on every single program?
He did score a touchdown. He has a touchdown this year.
Okay. But they
Did you
bring
see
up
how
the
he
fact
scored
that
it?
no, I didn't.
He didn't
Was it a
catch it.
rushing touchdown? It was a rushing touchdown, right?
He fell on a fumble in the end zone.
It's just unbelievable. But yeah, he has not had a receiving touchdown this season. And I feel like
Correct.
they want to let us know that 48 different ways every single week.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely do.
I'm over it. I'm uploading my lineups now just so I don't get lost in the shuffle here. So bear with me for a second. We got ourselves late news today, which, again, is a rarity here on this show. It seems like this season, we did get, breaking news 10 minutes before a slate started last year on Kyron Williams, and when we jammed him, that went well, but haven't had anything like that show up here this season because, well, people have kind of stayed healthy. One guy we did get late news on here is probably my favorite tournament play at the tight end position. He's 5,300. He's kind of in no man's land, but Jonnu Smith has been completely different in this Miami offense. And I feel like if I'm going to play a one-off here that isn't Tyreek Hill, I love getting to a little Jonnu Smith purely because that upside is absolutely there. I mean, he's been more involved than Jalen Waddle overall on the sum of the whole. And I don't know, people don't want to play him there. I'm willing to click on a little bit more Jonnu Smith. He's kind of in no man's land between that 6K range and that 4K range, but I think that he's very, very intriguing. Do you like Jonnu Smith, or who's your favorite tournament play not named Trey McBride and Brock Bowers?
Yeah, I like Jonnu Smith a lot. He's extremely involved. I think the answer for me is going to be Njoku. Also seeing some crazy volume in this Cleveland offense without Tillman. Very difficult matchup against Pittsburgh, but I don't think anything's going to stop Jameis from throwing at this point. So he's probably the tournament play I would prefer the most. Not all that different in price from Jonnu, just 200 different.
Jameis Winston, tournaments, fire it up. Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku doubles. I'm more than happy with it. That's kind of the other thing that's happening a lot. Sam Darnold, TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson. Like, a lot of my doubles are just purely dipping into these tight ends that are, not as popular as the Bowers McBride piece, but Bowers McBride, just playing them without the quarterbacks, I have no issue whatsoever. Kyler, not somebody that I had as much as I was hoping to maybe get in the Sims tool as I'm going through it, but about a third of my lineups chopped up now for Sam Darnold. So what I said before about being pretty flat at quarterback, Sam Darnold kind of the exception. He's going to be popular, but I'm willing to embrace that for sure. Any cheapies at tight end? Because I'm not really seeing it this week.
Juwan Johnson, he's probably my favorite. You could make an argument. You could make an argument for Freiermuth now. I don't really know if he sees a huge jump in targets. He just isn't on the field that much. It's like a 60% route share this year, which is very bad. Otherwise, like maybe a Cole Kmet, it's pretty weak for tight end value, which is nice for us because we have all the running back value where we don't really need to consider it a ton. Hawkinson is interesting to me, but Josh Oliver's back. That's maybe they put a cap on him. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Mind with me here. Just disappearing into the abyss, and we're back. Yeah, my thing got unplugged. I have no idea how. There's a ghost in here, Matt.
Is that your dog?
No, my dog's inside. It's just the literal ghost of Christmas future, I think. Isn't the ghost of Christmas future is like the really, really creepy one, right? Where he's like dead and nobody's mourning him. And have you read A Christmas Story?
No.
Thought maybe you were cultured, but
I like reading. I've never read that though.
It's 400-page playbooks or nothing at all, right?
No, that's the best reading.
Yeah, that's the kind of Tolstoy that I can get behind. But I can also get behind you guys checking out one more time Portfolio EV. If you're looking to make some bets here today, 70% off. We're going to fire it up one more time for the people. If you are joining a little bit late, Portfolio EV over at Odd Shopper. This thing is turning money over hand over fist. It is a beautiful time to be alive. If you're in a legal betting state, check out Portfolio EV. Even some of the Fliff goodness and rebet getting added here to the fray. Awesome stuff at Portfolio EV over at Odd Shopper. Sign up at the link, 70% off using code CYBERWEEK. That is valid through the end of today, midnight tonight, Eastern time, 9 p.m. Pacific. It will be done. So take advantage now, 70% off your first month of Portfolio EV. Teaching more DeAndre Swift will play. God, if I had looked down at that alert and seen that they were out, I would have just lost my mind. But fortunately, I keep my mind here as we go to the rest of the slate here. Defense. It matters. It matters, Matt. I know that it doesn't at times, and it's very, very frustrating to project, to do all these things for. The Saints, mega uber ownership coming in on them. The Steelers, not terribly far behind Jameis Winston. He does good things. He does bad things. The Tennessee Titans pulling a lot of ownership against Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones? Because it's Mac Jones. And the 49ers up against Caleb Williams. I'm a little surprised to see that one, considering 49ers have not been all that in a bag of potato chips. But on a slate where we have very cheap running backs, I like getting to the Eagles. I like getting to the Vikings, who are going to add a lot of pressure into Kirk Cousins' face. Brian Flores, I love you so much. How are we feeling about defense, Matt? Because I think it's a more fun position this week than it's been previous weeks, because I think you can get away from this Saints truck in some capacity.
Yeah, I think they're a fine play anytime you face, like, whether it's Drew Lock or DeVito. Those guys are both atrocious and take a ton of sacks. O-line is hurt and bad to begin with. The Titans-Jaguars game is fun. Both of those defenses project well. They're both cheap, and they're both benefiting from facing an awful quarterback on the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the cheap defenses, I think, make a lot of sense on a slate like this. You actually have some, like, pretty interesting options. Russell Wilson, he's definitely a player that could get sacked by Cleveland's pass rush. I mean, I'm somewhat interested in, like, even the Jets. I think they've been terrible, and I threw a lot of shade on them earlier, but like at 2,700, willing to take some shots there. Even the, like, Raiders at 2,300, playing Tampa Bay, I think that could make some sense. Like, the cheap defenses make a lot of things work on today's slate. Depending on how you build, you might not need to do it, but if you need yourself finding lineups that are like, okay, I need an extra 500 or 600, I have no problem playing the cheap defenses.
Yep, me either. Cheap defenses, expensive defenses. I think that's what makes a good slate for some of these defenses, is like you have options at different ranges. And we've had a couple of these slates, and obviously the Sims tool, I kind of love what it's doing. It's getting away from the Saints defense a little bit. Now, it's the second most popular defense that I have, but the Steelers defense really took a bump up. I find that to be fascinating. I think the Vikings defense, one that, I had to boost a little bit to get to, but I'm just willing to just look at that blitz rate and embrace what I hope is Kirk Cousins sitting back in the pocket doing nothing again this week. That would be awesome. Because again, not a ton of the run backs. I do have some Drake London, some Darnell Mooney, some Ray McLeod, but not as much as, otherwise normally would be looking at if I wanted a game environment to go completely berserk. Go Justin Jefferson and Justin Jefferson alone. But let's round out this slate. 5 minutes to go. Hit the like button. Make sure your lineups are in as well, because again, late breaking news. Sims tool has definitely changed its outlook on the slate throughout this program. Hopefully you've reran your lineups. Hopefully you are using Entry Manager as well to make sure that you're getting those in the right contests over on DraftKings. I think it's such an awesome addition by our dev team, by the guys behind the scenes who are doing amazing work to bring you the Sims tool and the best projections, I believe, in the entire industry, bar none. But quarterback, 3 favorite quarterbacks, or let's do this. Let's just go through what we have in our lineups right now, looking at the Sims tool. Your 3 highest owned quarterbacks today.
Stafford, Darnold, Mayfield.
My exact same 3. Running back.
That's the 3 cheap guys.
Yep, same here. Saquon Barkley, actually, I have a little bit more of than Kamara, 28% to 24%, but I'm still getting to them as well. Very, very consolidated pool. Wide receiver.
Juwan Jennings, Drake London, Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson, Van Jefferson, Juwan Jennings. That's a mouthful.
A lot of J's.
A lot of
Jeffersons.
J's. If you have a J in your first and last name, I am cheering for you to smash souls today. Tight end.
Well, it's easy. Just stop at 2. McBride and Bowers. My third is Ingram, but far distant third.
My third's Hawkinson, then Jonnu Smith sitting there at 4. And defense.
Defense. Let's see here. Saints, Steelers, Titans.
Steelers, Saints, Vikings. So let's party down, my friends. We're going to get ourselves the heck up out of here. Maybe a tiny bit early, maybe. I don't know. Any questions? Oh, Ryan, $1.99. FanDuel, 1 p.m. GPP, Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, or Ridley, AJ Brown. That's going to be the Evans-Wilson side for me, surely.
Me too.
Awesome. We didn't have any other super chats either. Pretty quiet little day on that Western front, that's for sure. The wagon of the day, that's what we can do to round out the program. And I need to see the graphic or I will be sad. Jordan Klein, we need Matt Gajewski's wagon of the day. Who's going to score us 2 touchdowns and go for 100 yards, either in the rushing or receiving realm?
Bowers.
Garundo.
I love Garundo.
I'm so unbelievably here for it now. Charbonnet, that feels like cheating, but Justin Jefferson will be my wagon of the day. That shouldn't be surprising.
He's a great wagon pick.
I love him so much here. Also, 4% Darius Slayton. Okay, I'm okay with that. I had him in 18% earlier when I thought Neighbors was just going to be out, but 4%. All right, I can live with that. And you guys can go, we'll get the heck up out of here. That's what we'll do. Thank you, producer Jordan Klein here. Best in the game, named Jordan Klein for sure. Matt Gajewski. Go follow him, Matt_Gajewski. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Appreciate you all tuning in on Sunday. You guys allow Eric and I to do something we love every single weekend. And we really appreciate you being here and allowing us to do that. So thank you.
He's so lovely when he does stuff like that. I'm Eric Lindquist. Go follow me at Eric Lindquist. And don't forget, check out NFL Live Before Lock tonight. Kind of a big game, kind of an awesome opportunity to make some coin there. You're going to have Matt Bellman and EMAC bringing you all of that. Until next time, friends, until week 15, enjoy week 14. We'll see you guys back here next week.